Welcome to a new episode of Film Seizure at the Movies. I'm Geoff Arbuckle, co-host of the Film Seizure podcast that you can catch each Wednesday morning with my cohorts, Jason Oliver and Chuck Moore, and my solo show, Monster Mondays, each Monday afternoon. You can catch both of those shows at filmseizure.com, and you can catch both of those cohorts right now on this special episode of Film Seizure at the Movies. Jason, Chuck,
Hey.
welcome.
Hey, it's a celebration of 2022.
It kind
Thank
of
you for
is.
having me.
Yeah, it's this is our best of 2022. What's interesting is we are recording this on the day that the Oscar nominations came out too.
Yeah.
So we might have a little bit of commentary about that as well. But we do this usually later than a lot of people, just because it's like we don't always have the ability to see everything that we want to see right away. Sometimes you got to wait for stuff to come out. But I wanted to get this going before the end of January. And I think we all have pretty solid lists.
Yes, indeed, and kind of diverse lists. We have overlap, but we have a lot of solo picks, which is going to make it, I think, an interesting conversation.
Yeah, I think so.
Something for everyone, I think, in this episode.
Yeah, and I will say that I am evolving how I'm choosing what's going to be on my list versus what didn't make the list, although I can still recognize it's a very good movie. Some of it is, can I go back to it? Can I rewatch it at any point in time? And to be honest with you, in my top 10 list, there's only one movie that I would say is not a movie I could watch at any point in time just to watch again. So there's some of that criteria that I put into my list. Some of it also is, and that definitely, I kind of played around with my criteria for what I'm going to call my worst of 2022, just because of a larger conversation that probably needs to happen. And I admit there's some conversation there that I'm going to be guilty of a little bit too. Of kind of helping promote or keep going when it comes to, this type of movie. But we'll get there when we get there. But generally speaking, how did you guys feel in general about 2022 movies?
I'll say
Go ahead.
I had kind of a hard time choosing my top 10, and I'll be honest, I haven't been on the last couple of these episodes because I didn't watch nearly enough movies, right? So I've caught up over time, but this year was like, it was pretty full of movies that I quite liked. It wasn't full of movies that blew me away, but a lot that I really liked, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Yes, I agree. There were a couple movies that I liked a whole lot, right? A couple few movies that I liked a whole lot. And then it was really kind of hard to pick, to put them in an order, to keep it to 10. It was a very solid year.
Yeah.
But it wasn't necessarily like a cream of the crop kind of year. You know what I mean?
Agree, totally.
Yeah. I mean, I think that there are some standout movies. Obviously, every year is going to have a handful of standout movies. But yeah, I mean, I had 16, 17 movies where I thought, I had a really good time watching these movies. And if that's the bare minimum, and again, I talked about most of the movies on my top 10, I could watch at a drop of a hat again. And,
Yeah.
But what really kind of was interesting was I had really interesting kind of relationships with movies this year. There are two movies that I have very complicated relationships with that I saw in 2022. And I'll just go ahead and kind of briefly talk about this real quick, because one I talked about earlier in the year, one I haven't talked about at all. And the one that I saw earlier in the year that I have a very complicated relationship with is the Doctor Strange movie that came out. Mm-hmm. And a lot of that had to do with the weekend that it came out was the weekend that my favorite artist, George Perez, passed away. And how he and Kurt Busiek did their Avengers run and how they built up the Scarlet Witch versus what happened to that character after they left and how that character is now playing that out in the movies. There was this really weird kind of synergetic kind of weird, like I felt weird watching it. And it stuck with me in that way. The other movie that I have an extremely complicated relationship with is Babylon. That's a movie that I actually have been kind of kicking around the idea of once it comes to streaming, maybe doing like a more like an essay type of special episode of this. Because there are things that I like that I shouldn't like in it. And there are things that I should like in it that I hate in it. It's a weird relationship. It's neither one of those movies got close to the top 10 list. They weren't part of those, but they were movies that will stick with me. And it's weird. Did you guys have anything like that where you were kind of fighting with some of the stuff that you saw this year?
I'm trying to think what would stand out there. I do want to kind of mention that this is the first year I started to really track everything I watched, not just that came out this year, but that I watched for the first time this year. And if I probably missed some things, but I watched about 170 movies for the first time in 2022.
You spent half the year doing that.
Yeah, that's not including stuff I watched that I'd already seen, right? A lot of that would have been for this podcast. I do want to mention, before we get into my top 10, that probably a movie that would have made my list last year, but that couldn't make this year's list because it's technically a 2021 movie, is Benedetta. Or Benedetta. Sorry.
Benedetta. I was going to guess that. Sorry.
That would have been real close to the top. So that's kind of one of those ones that sort of fell victim to timing. But I wanted to give it a shout out. I also want to mention, as far as what I've seen this year, did pretty well on the Best Picture nominations. The only two I haven't seen as of the taping of this episode are Women Talking and All Quiet on the Western Front. I've seen the rest. So you can keep that in mind when you hear my top 10 if you care for context. Other than that, I had about 25 to 30 movies that I was tracking as the year went along that I thought might be in the conversation for my top 10 that I had to pare down. I pared that down to about 17 for my short list, or 18, I think, really, for my short list. And then that was then pared down to this top 10. So it was hard. It was really hard. At any point in time, those other 8 movies were probably jockeying for position at some point in time in the year, but were bumped out by other things. So my criteria, watchability is certainly part of it, but for me, it's more about what kind of impact the movie had. Did it resonate with me? Did it make me feel the feels? And those feels don't necessarily have to be the touchy-feely feels. They can be the creepy-crawly feels.
Or they could just be, you're just digging it.
Right.
You know.
It has to be well made. It has to kind of know what it is and succeed.
Yeah.
Just bare minimum there. That's not to say that all of these movies or any of these movies are perfect. I don't think any of the movies in my top 10 are perfect movies. For various reasons, but they're the 10 I liked the most.
Okay. Chuck, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I will say that relationship-wise with movies, I was looking to have fun this year, I think, a little bit. And my list is going to be skewed on horror, probably because that's what's fun for me right now. I didn't approach this as I need to see everything that's going to be nominated. I need to see everything, that's being critically acclaimed. I approached it from this is what I'd like to see, right? And there are movies in my list that I think both of you probably recommended to me, or at least mentioned to me, that showed up. Last thing I'll say is that the beginning of this year came out with a bang. Like for me, so everything was kind of fighting the early part of the year, and the early movies hung around. Like you'll see it when I talk about my top 10. A lot of the stuff I saw early in the year is still in my list.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I now that you mention that, yeah, I see it because it's oftentimes recency, kind of starts to favorite or becomes a favorite.
Right.
And yeah, that's something that you kind of have to fight with a little bit. I will say that I saw 76 movies on the year, and most of those were in the theater. I saw things in the theater that typically I wouldn't have gone, but AMC A-list, might as well, it pays for itself.
Right. Absolutely.
And if they want to sponsor me, I will continue to say it. But yeah, so it's like I got to see a lot of things, and I went to theaters even if I could have streamed it because of that. So again, there's another relationship there that's kind of, kind of part of that a little bit. But anyway, so we're not going to go through every single movie on all of our top 10 lists. We have each selected a handful. We'll also talk about what our worst is. And we're going to go this kind of like in a round robin. Almost called it a Rob Roundin.
Since
I like that
Letterboxd
better.
makes this real easy, I saw 66 2022 movies this year.
There you go.
And most of those were at home.
Yeah.
Wow.
No, you hate going to the theater. So
I don't care for it much. Yeah.
no. So anyway, all right. So, Jason, you want to
Sure.
talk? You want to get into your list first, and then I'll go second.
Sure. So coming in at number 10 is Something in the Dirt. This is the latest film from Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead, or I like to refer to them as Benson and Hedges. They made this little COVID movie, in quarantine. That's kind of this love letter to making movies with your friends. And it is two people, whole movie, with some talking heads in there at the end. But this to me is this I was thinking about what I was going to say about this movie today, and it's kind of Nope in a lot of ways, but at the smallest possible scale. Whereas Nope is at the largest possible scale, right? IMAX and all of that. But at the center of it, at the heart of the story, it's kind of the same thing. It's trying to capture something spectacular and all that comes with that. The profiteering of that, the getting caught up in the spectacle, getting caught up in the nuance of the thing, and not being able to see the forest through the trees, right? It's also kind of this interesting commentary on QAnon in a lot of ways, the way people connect the dots to things that really don't connect at all. And it's also kind of a fun little playful tongue-in-cheek commentary on, I think, the filmmakers' movies themselves and their fandom, because of all the little like intricacies and connections between their movies. It's like Fire Walk with Me, the movie, the scene with the Blue Rose scene, which is much derided and much beloved because it's this sort of nonsensical scene where the character is pantomiming this message to David Lynch, and it's all in code, and David Lynch is explaining the code to Chris Isaac, and it's ridiculous. It's like why are they even communicating this way, right? And it was David Lynch's kind of way of poking a little bit of fun at Twin Peaks fandom, because they're always looking for every little clue to see how it connects to the next thing, right? When usually 90% of it is noise. So really, really great little flick. I saw this Sundance Festival was online this year, and this played Sundance, and I caught it. So it was one of the first movies I saw in 2022, and it's stuck with me ever since. I've also fanboy hard for these guys, so I'm a little bit biased too.
I laughed real hard at Benson and Hedges, but my mic was muted. Just wanted to make sure that was known.
Yeah, no, that sounds fairly interesting. I will admit that of the 6 movies that you're going to talk about, Jason, I saw only 2. So,
We've got some homework.
sure. I've already moved on to 2023. 2022 is the win now. Anyway, no, that's kind of interesting you bring up Sundance, because Sundance is happening right now also.
Exactly.
There is one that I would like to check out this year. Onyx the Fortuitous has his own movie now.
Oh my God.
And you can
Are you
stream
serious?
it as of now. Yes, you can stream it if you buy it. Yeah, it's like a $20 ticket, but you can stream it as of now.
Oh,
yeah.
Shit, yeah.
Anyway, yeah. So anyway, yeah, no, that's
So, all right, Geoff, what's your number 10?
Well, I'm going to start with number 8.
Okay.
Because that's
weird.
That's the first one that I pointed out that I wanted to talk about.
Okay.
That's The Menu. If anybody who listened to the episode I did of this back in November or whatever, I loved it. This was a movie that was jockeying for positions late in the year, and it was one that I decided this is the one that I would more likely watch than the one that I had to end up cutting. I saw it twice in the theater, as a matter of fact. So then but like the whole plot of this movie is sold as this horror movie that, Jason, you thought was going to be a Most Dangerous Game type movie.
Yeah, I totally did.
It is not that at all, and probably to its benefit.
Oh, for sure.
Because it's sold to you in one way, watching it becomes something else, and you
Did
realize.
You see this one yet, Chuck?
The Menu, yes, I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we've all seen it. Great.
Yeah, and so I started to kind of revel in this black comedy, is what it really became. The whole thing with how the chef, played by Ray Fiennes, is so commanding of his team, it's almost become a cult.
Yeah.
While also their intense hatred for the people that they serve. Anybody who's ever worked in a service situation will probably identify with that.
Yeah.
That, even when you have somebody who loves you, as is the case with Nicholas Hoult. The Nicholas Hoult character is such a fanboy of Ray Fiennes that it's too late. Ray Fiennes is gone. He doesn't like this kid. He doesn't like him. In fact, he especially hates him for what you find out is actually going on at this dinner, because it just shows that this character is a scumbag as well. And you do identify a little bit with the chef because of all the intensely unlikable people at this restaurant for various reasons. The comedy is sharp. I love Hong Chow. She did 2 performances this year, one of which she got nominated for with The Whale, and this one I would pretty much watch anything she's in now. She is so perfectly kind of villainous by just existing.
My favorite character in the movie, if I can interject, for sure, is her.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, she is sharp. She is no nonsense. And the way that she takes down, particularly the whole table of dude bros, constantly, is great. But then there's little visual jokes in it too. Like when the chef has Tyler, the Nicholas Hoult character, show off his own prowess. And each time that they served something, there was a little explanation of what they served and the title of that dish. Yeah. And for this one, it said Tyler's bullshit because it's awful. It's just fucking awful, and the chef dresses him down, and it's a funny scene, even knowing what happens to that character afterwards.
Yeah, it's heavy. The movie is kind of heavy because it's really sharply funny, but it's also kind of conflicting, right?
Yeah,
Like it's a satire not of just like foodie culture, but of chef culture, right? And then the interplay between the two, because they kind of prop each other up, right?
right. Mm-hmm.
And it's all kind of bullshit. And most chefs that become at the level of Ray Fiennes in this is they're usually kind of building an empire on the backs of indentured servants, right?
Yeah, and
Like,
there is an indentured servant attitude here,
Yeah.
because they live on this island together.
Yeah.
Their full existence is to be the chef's people.
Yeah.
It's so weird.
It is weird.
But
Because
but
all
in
of
the
them
world
want
it
to be the
accepts.
next him.
Exactly.
So
But they're all missing something too.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was right on the cusp. Like, this was probably my number 11. Yeah, it was tough when leaving this one off.
Chuck,
Anything
anything to
else
add?
you need to say about the menu?
No, it's great. It's perfect. Go see it.
I liked this movie quite a bit. The reason it didn't make my list is a lot of telegraphing, and that is just, it is what it is, right? Like, for me, I was like, I know exactly where this is going, but the Nicholas Hoult character is so astoundingly hateful
Yeah.
that it's like, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
I don't know.
mean,
I did
ultimately-
like a lot of the characters, and there's a good, excuse me, I dropped something. I'm so sorry.
No,
There is a good character study of almost everyone in this, but also being a service industry person, I was always like, I guess Ray Fiennes is what we want to do to the people that annoy us, right?
right. Yeah.
But for me, it's kind of
fantasy.
annoying that he's doing it.
Sure.
If that makes sense. Yeah.
Well, no,
Sorry.
because, I mean, if you're in the service industry when you see it, you have one opinion, but now you're no longer in that service industry position quite the same way. So, it evolves. It evolved your opinion of what,
Yeah.
If you saw this
what-
while you were still working at Applebee's, you probably would have a similar or a different take on it even.
Yeah, absolutely. It's almost like, what is that movie with Ryan Reynolds? Waiting. Like,
Oh, yeah.
it's like a serious kind of version of that in a way, like the hatred towards clientele and whatever. And I don't want to go too deep into this, but like hating your clients who make your living is kind of deplorable to me. So,
Well, sure.
Well,
sure.
there's
Yes.
been a lot made recently of like the Michelin system and
Yeah.
the pressure that brings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that it's not necessarily a good thing for anyone, right?
no.
And it's this circle jerk, right? That everybody participates in, that really just creates a heightened pretension and classism. And what I think some of the best moments in that movie for me are how each table reacts to each dish, right?
Yes.
Right.
Because you see like a lot of like the sink and fin, like the Nicholas Hoult character is just gobbling up his condiments, whereas the Dubrow table are just like, where the fuck's the bread,
Right.
And it's perfect. And then you've got Leguizamo, who's just like, I mean, this is pretty fucking good, but I do wish I had some bread.
Right.
It's just interesting the play like before they even realize they're in trouble, the different sort of levels of foodie culture and why people buy into an experience like that, right?
Unfortunately, I want to ask a question now because I have my answer. What table would you be sitting at if you were brought in here? And if that's too much to come up with right now, I'll say while you're thinking, I'm a dude, bro. Unfortunately, I want my fucking bread. I don't know if I'd go to the lengths they do
Right.
in this movie, but I identify with them in a way that's kind of discomforting.
I would kind of know what I'm getting into.
Yeah.
So I would probably be more on the level of Leguizamo and his assistant.
That's
That's
where I
fair.
would probably. That's probably where I would be too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like
fair.
I would accept it, but I would kind of grumble. Right?
But we'd all want to be on it
because everybody's
Joy,
a critic, right? And I'm definitely going to be a critic.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Go
All
ahead.
right, Chuck, to you.
Yeah, so this happens to be my 10th movie, so I'll just say it at the jump. It's Nope. I said earlier that horror was kind of my angle, right? This year I watched a lot of horror. I love horror films. It's what I've been doing. But I'd also been leading up to this due to the show and for other reasons watching a lot of Westerns.
Mm-hmm.
So this movie scratched like every itch in both of those. Well, maybe not every itch for Western, but it was a nice bonus to have that kind of Western aspect of this film. It also brought me back to my childhood, right? It's a Spielberg film in a lot of ways. It's, we're going to talk about one of Spielberg's films, or we already did, I can't remember, real soon, that this movie reminds me of in a lot of ways. So it's that alien, I'm saying alien, I mean, there's literally an alien, right? But it's that alien feeling the whole movie of like something is above you. It's kind of literal and figurative in a lot of ways when you watch Nope, because what's actually happening is how you feel, right? At least for me. And I think Jordan Peele executes it phenomenally. There's the weird... I almost want to move this film up now that I'm talking about it. It's weird how that works, right? But there's that whole thing with Gordy and the relationship humans to animals and the relationship of the kid who's with Gordy and the monster later on in the movie that's just so... Like, you really have to kind of think about this movie if you want to get it, but you can also watch it and not think about it and have a really fucking good time. Yeah. Like, there's some creepy shit in this movie that has nothing... The kids, right?
Absolutely. In the barn, in the stable, rather. That, I was uncomfortable. And that goes back to something from my childhood, too. I won't really go into it, but I mean, like, there's something from another movie that always unsettles me that movie or that Nope reminded me of. And it's like, and I was just like seized up,
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say that this is one of the first movies I can remember since the Fifth Element is different in a way, but the way that this movie was sold totally subverts your expectations. So while you're watching it, the scene that you're talking about, Geoff, is like, oh my God, they're little fucking green people.
Yeah.
That, you know what I mean? Like, it totally sells a different version of itself that like really makes the movie work when you think about it afterwards. I highly recommend Nope and really considering it, because I think some people have seen it and have just not gone any deeper than what the film shows you.
Yeah,
any thoughts from you guys?
It is a very smart horror sci-fi movie, and it is just outside my top 10 list. You have two movies that you're going to talk about, that one and another one later, that is just outside my top 10 list. And the way it's shot, the sound,
it's beautiful. It sounds great.
Everything. Yeah. I mean, it's a movie you need. If you could have gone to see it in the theater, you really should have.
Yes.
Agreed. Hard agree with that.
I will go so far as to say as Stephen Yeun was robbed this award season. He got like no consideration from anything that I could see, which is just flat out wrong. He's phenomenal in this movie. This was also my short list. Definitely in the consideration. I liked it a lot. I would also say it is the IMAX spectacle of the year. In that regard, I think it beats out for me, certainly beats out Avatar for me as IMAX spectacle, like big movie. And in a different way, it beats out Top Gun for me as spectacle. I just think its use of the IMAX screen and those big, wide sky shots, in the valley, like all of that is just. I honestly, I can't bring myself to watch this movie at home. I don't know. I just can't do it because I know that I'm not gonna have the same reaction to it. That
Can
sucks.
I tell you? Can I say something?
Yeah.
Because that is kind of important. I watched this movie with Brinley, and she loved it, which would kind of astounded me. Like I'm like, she's gonna like this movie, and she's the movie watcher of my two children. But ever since that, she's like, we need to watch Nope with everyone else. We need to watch Nope with everyone else, like now. And I'm like, well, your mom doesn't want to watch it again, and your sibling doesn't want to watch movies very often, but she's been pressing it hard. So it hit with her, and I know she's obviously 40 or whatever, 30 years younger, doesn't have that same relationship.
Well, make sure when that inevitably plays IMAX theaters again that you take her to see it in IMAX.
I will. I'll do it.
Because so much of the fun of this movie was looking in one corner of the gigantic screen to see if I could catch a glimpse of whatever's hiding behind the clouds. It's just it was magnificent use of space.
I will say I watched this in the theater, and I agree with that. And I know IMAX is a different experience, but this is one of the few I'm like, I need to get out for this and see it. Get out.
Yeah, well, I think then that all of us agree. Anyway, Chuck's laughing. He's
laughing again. Muted. Yeah. Sorry.
No, I saw. I don't typically do IMAX. I typically do the Dolby. And this was one, there was no doubt in my mind this one had to be a Dolby, and just to get every sound from every direction, it was perfect. All right, Jason, I think you're going to talk about number 9 on your list.
Yes, I am. So this one, I would just say this one is To Leslie, and this movie just popped up on my radar in the last couple weeks. It's kind of got an interesting story behind it. Sort of a lot of actors, A-list actors, started to kind of rally a campaign for its support for Andrea Riseborough to be nominated for Best Actress. And you don't usually see that a lot. There were people who were winning awards for their performance, like Cate Blanchett for Tar, who was talking about Angela Riseborough and To Leslie. It's like, what is going on here? And somehow, some way, everyone thought it would be a little too late, but it did it. It made the nomination list for Best Actress for Andrea Riseborough. So I checked this out a couple days before the nominations, and it floored me. Not only is her performance good, but it's a really good, well-told story. It's kind of like feel-good redemption story that you just kind of need every now and then. And her performance is fantastic, but it's not just her either. Allison Janney, as always, is great in it, and it has a really good performance by Mark Maron. I think at least Chuck is a fan of him. So, yeah, I highly recommend it. It's just powerhouse performance. She's just engrossing in it. She carries the whole damn thing for the most part. But it's a good movie to boot. So check it out.
What?
First time director too. I think it's nice. a debut feature for the director.
I hadn't heard of it when you mentioned it, and I looked it up, and I'm like, I need to watch that.
Yeah, so, it's one of those movies I can't imagine anyone disliking. It's just, yeah. It's hard to watch at times, but you feel everything she feels. And you're just mad at her, and you're pissed, and you're rooting for her, and it's like she drags you through all of it. Yeah, it's one of those all-timer performances. It really is. I don't know if it'll be enough for her to win. I don't know how many people who vote will actually get to see it, but I think if they do, it'll be hard to not cast a vote for.
Awesome.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, no, I hadn't heard of it until you mentioned anything about it either. So yeah, it was like completely news to me also. I was like, I never even heard, and apparently it only just came out a few months ago.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And just kind of got this crazy groundswell of support. Like, I don't even know how it happened, but people who are, have the public microphone, I guess, if you will, have been touting it. And
if you can build that kind of support in 2 months and get a nomination, I mean, that says
amongst your
a
peers.
lot.
Yeah, for sure.
It says a lot.
It does. It really does. So anyway, yeah, good stuff.
All right. Yeah.
Kick it to yourself, Geoff.
Yeah, I'll kick it over to me. Like a hacky sack, just kicking it up straight up to my own foot. I'm going to go to number 6 on my list. And this is a feel-good movie. It's a movie that when I started the day that I was going to go see it, some stuff wasn't quite working out the way I wanted it to, as far as like some other chores I had to do. So I was kind of grumpy, and I came in, I was like, oh fuck, now I'm going to sit here and watch a 2.5 hour movie. I hope it don't, kind of end up reflecting on it. And I ended up loving it. It actually changed my mood for the rest of the day. And that is The Fabelmans. Here is kind of Steven Spielberg kind of going back to, I really honestly, after, say, the second Jurassic Park, the types of movies he's made has not been the same largeness. They were a little bit more personal, or a little bit more like Lincoln, where it's, or Amistad, where it's a little more quote unquote important. Saving Private Ryan certainly comes to mind there too. But here's this kind of movie that you think is gonna be this really straightforward and kind of cheesy little family drama, but it turns out to be a lot more than that. And you end up becoming incredibly invested in this family, to the point where you kind of hate that it's breaking apart. You celebrate it when it's going well. You like just about everybody in the family, even though there's one person in the family that is very difficult at times to like. And I knew it, that one freaking scene that Judd Hirsch was in, I knew he was going to get nominated for an Oscar for it. And he really is only in like a scene and a half. Excuse me. But it's one of those movies that makes you feel good. And it ends in one of the most delightful final scenes in a movie that I've seen in a long, long time. And it has the perfect final shot based on that final scene that I left. I mean, this sounds hokey as hell, but I left the theater smiling because of that. And that's what a movie should do. And that's what I should expect Steven Spielberg to do.
Yeah, I would argue that for all of James Cameron's posturing, that Avatar is the movie that is the thing that is the I don't know, cinematic draw,
experience,
the cinematic experience, and all of that. Yeah, like for all his posturing, the Avatar is the thing that's what people are craving, right? I wish more people would see The Fabelmans, because I think that this is the type of movie that people are really craving.
45 years ago, this is the movie that would have been a massive success. But we've kind of dulled our experiences with these kind of big tentpole, these big giant movies. This movie is big in some ways, but it's a small story. There's, and it's like, it's the drama of it has a weird spot where it spikes to the climax. And then there's like 45 minutes of it just kind of slowly bringing us in for the landing. And because you're so invested, that's it's great. It's just a great experience. It's the reason why I like watching movies, you know. And again,
This was also on my short list. Didn't quite make the cut. Again, this is a hard year. I gave this 4 stars on Letterboxd, and it didn't make my top 10. So what are you gonna do?
yeah, what are you gonna do? But yeah, no, it's yeah, you're right, Jason. This is what more people should be seeking out and finding in a theater, and just sitting there in the dark and watching it.
I think if there's one movie that can take Best Picture over Everything Everywhere All at Once, it's this one. We'll just see what happens in the next 6 weeks. All the
I
politics.
think most people feel like it's got Best Director in the bag.
Yeah, which would then break your cardinal rule.
I know, but you know what?
I think all 3 of us would be happy if Everything Everywhere All at Once wins.
Sure.
But somebody's going to talk about that in a little bit.
Yeah, put a lid on that.
My small note on this movie is I didn't see it, unfortunately. I wish I had.
I think you'd like it. I think you'd like it a lot.
I think I would too. I'm a Spielberg fan, as noted when we were talking about Nope. I know this is the other category of Spielberg, right? But I'm definitely interested.
Well, this is also a little bit of a makeup because the one that just missed last year's list was West Side Story. So this one, this one was solidly in the top 10 the moment I saw it. So
good.
Yeah. Chuck, why don't you do these next 2 back to back?
Next 2 back to back. All right. So starting with what is my number 8, continuing the horror theme. Oop.
Wait, I thought you were going to talk about number 5. 5.
Yeah, your asterisk movies, not your.
Oh, okay. My bad. I did have 8 on there, but I'll go to 5. Yes. So Pearl and X. Again, continuing the horror theme, that's still true. These movies couldn't, in a lot of ways, be more different, right? Like, they're extremely different. We have a straight up at number 4 horror film, kind of, in my opinion, almost a slasher. It's not a traditional slasher, but it's the
70s exploitation horror.
Yeah, 70s exploitation horror, which I've been, addicted to for how many years now.
Right.
So that movie scratches an itch that I don't think we get enough of these days at all. We get slashers, but they're not in this vein, right? The exploitation, not that I need nudity in film, but nudity has been done away with in horror, right? Not that I need, in a lot of ways, a lot of that exploitation aspect of 70s horror is gone. Powered by 2, I think, pretty good Mia Goth performances in this movie. Jenna Ortega is great. I learned who she was a couple months before. I think she's a Disney princess. Maybe she was a Disney girl, but she's excellent in this movie. Actually, both of these movies managed to have wonderful performances from almost everybody, people I've never seen before. X being that exploitation movie. Pearl, however, kind of blew me away. And again, I'm questioning the order of my list, right? Because I have Pearl at 5 and X at 4. And I think X is at 4 because it's more my speed, right? It's more what I love, kind of. But Pearl, man, it's if the Wicked Witch got stuck in Oz, or in Kansas, instead of Dorothy going to Oz, right? Mia Goth as a trapped but crazy girl in Kansas, right? And you do have all these allusions to The Wizard of Oz, which is another favorite movie of mine. I'll call it a favorite. It's stuck with me forever. It's not one I revisit all the time, but whenever it was on TV, I watched it.
We all know the beats of, all 3 of us probably know the beats of Wizard of Oz without having to actually see it recently.
Yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
It's kind of part of our youth, it's...
Yeah. Absolutely. Yes. And this movie plays off that in a big way, I think.
Certainly
And
with the color, it's like her red
well, yeah, it's a
dress
Technicolor
bleeds.
film, right?
Yeah,
It's Technicolor.
right.
I don't know if it is. Is it
Well, I
Technicolor,
don't know if
Jason?
it's. I mean,
Well,
it's
I don't know
definitely shot
if
to
they
look like
technically
it.
use the film process, but it's shot to look like it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Mia Goth, my God, her performance, like, to me, is, and Jason, you mentioned an unassailable performance. And Mia isn't like to the nth degree the entire movie in this, but that scene at the table, her little soliloquy, and then her end credit scene is like kind of blew me away. I was like, I don't expect it. Like on the heels of X, where she's good. She's good as the old lady. She's good as Maxine. But this, I was like, holy shit. Like I left that theater like, I didn't even know what to say about it. I kept telling Stephanie, like, she talked for like 2.5 minutes without breaking character, without like error. And like, I completely believed her. She was not Mia Goth. She was her character. And a lot of the times I'm like, you kind of see through that, at least for me.
Yeah.
So performance wise, Pearl is just astounding. I think both of these movies are top notch and in my top 5.
I wonder if that wasn't intended to be a oneer, but they had camera A and camera B set up, and generally, you just do the scene, and if you need to cut, you cut. But I think they got that. I really feel like it was just Mia Goth being like, I'm just nailing this thing, and then they looked at it, they're like, yeah, we're not cutting this up.
I mean, you can't. After having seen it, if you cut that shit up, you're doing a major disservice to what
Sure.
Right.
Mia did. Yeah, absolutely.
Sure. But a lot of times, that's kind of what you do, right? You've got your over-the-shoulder, reaction shots, all of that. But yeah,
Well, and sometimes that's just because you can't get one clean shot of an entire speech.
That
I mean
too.
that is multiple pages of a script.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine reading a book for 2.5 pages. Even if you read it 40 times, closing the book and then repeating it back with emotion to somebody, that's impossible for most of us.
Right.
For all 3 of us, I'm sure. But I mean, that's exactly what that is. I mean, yeah. I know that X and Pearl, we cheated, Jason. You and I both,
Geoff and I cheated. We ranked them together.
yes. And we
But they
ranked them
both
in the
made our
same
top
slot.
10. Yeah.
We both put them in number 7.
Interesting.
Pearl to me is the more interesting movie just because of it's this kind of, it's like a dream, but it's also a horrific reality.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm on board with both of these movies for 2 very different reasons. And one thing I would say about X is that I've seen a lot of movies, particularly in my other gig over at B Movie Enema, where a movie goes way over the top trying to look and feel and act like a 70s or an 80s movie. They go over the top with making sure that that film looks used and beat up, and it pops and it scratches and it jumps and it does all of this stuff that, while it can do that, you better make it look like you shot it on film, because otherwise you're adding a film effect to a digital presentation, and it becomes distracting. And it's you just have to be kind of careful with some of that stuff, and everybody has the notion to go over the top with it. It's like, yeah, this is going to look like a VHS movie, or it's going to look like you went to a shitty 42nd Street grindhouse place or something. It doesn't have to. X doesn't do that, but it still looks grimy and dirty and broken and grainy and all of that stuff. and it becomes so good at that you just think you're watching film again.
I mean, it felt more like a Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie than the new Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie.
Agree.
And guess what? I didn't pick that one as my my least favorite movie of the year.
That was on my short list, guys. I'm joking.
I had fun with that movie, but
me too.
It's not going to be anywhere near my list. What was I going to say? It's hard to just not even talk about the pure creative, like, gumption of Ty West and Mia Goth, right? I mean, Pearl just kind of sprang up as a byproduct of X, right? And it was like, I think they wrote it in 2 weeks. They're like, we have all these locations, we have all these props, all these costumes. Let's just make another fucking movie. Like the old Roger Corman spirit, right? And they arguably made a better movie than the movie they set out to make. That's crazy.
Yeah. Although the one thing that Pearl doesn't have is the hilarious silhouette of Kid Cudi's extremely large dong.
He's fantastic in
He
X
is.
too.
He's really good. Yeah.
He sells that 70s aesthetic really well.
He really does. Well, you also mentioned what's her name?
Jenna Ortega.
Jenna Ortega. I mean, she just blew up. She's Wednesday Addams.
I saw 76 movies last year. She was in 73 of them.
Yeah, probably.
But I mean, yeah, she had one hell of a year. She started with X and she ended it with Wednesday.
Well, no, she had Scream first. She had
Scream
first,
yeah, as well.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we're going to see, she's going to be back here again in a few weeks or, whatever. Yeah.
Yep. Oh, for what? The new Scream?
Yeah. Scream 6.
Yep.
Scream 6.
Cool. Well, yeah, wholeheartedly agree with those picks. And you're right, we did skip one of yours. I don't know why we didn't do that one first, but we'll get there.
It's all right. I'll talk about it. It's my mistake in the asterisking.
Oh, gotcha. All right, who's that?
All right. So, yeah, we'll come back around to that. It's you, Jason. Tell us what your number 5 of the year was.
My number 5 of the year was...
Or no, I'm sorry. Number 8. Sorry.
Number 8. Yes. My number 8. My number 8 was After Yang. This is one that I missed when it came out. It played Cannes in 2021, but it was officially released by A24 in 2022. I think this kind of got in my radar after I saw Banshees of Inisherin because of Colin Farrell. And I was like, oh, what is this movie After Yang? And then I looked and I saw that it was directed by Kogonada, who directed one of my favorites of the year in 2017, Columbus. In fact, Columbus might have been a top 3 for me that year. God, it's a great movie. So I was like, gotta see this. So rented it because it's really hard to stream. I think it's like a Showtime exclusive or something, but absolutely floored me. It's just this quiet, peaceful, nice, introspective movie that doesn't demand too much of you, but demands enough, right? Like it's a very meditative film, almost to the point of being lyrical, but it has a very good driving through line, story to keep you going from point A to point B. But it's got a lot to say in a lot of quiet ways, particularly about the role of technology in our lives, right? The future of AI and what that looks like. What makes a family, right? What all families just come in like totally different shapes, sizes, mentalities, backgrounds, and they're all kind of, for better or worse, in this thing together, right? And this just kind of focuses on one of those stories in this futuristic world that doesn't really feel that far off, right? But it's basically about this family who has an android who they bought as a friend for their daughter. Colin Farrell is married to an African-American woman, and they have an adopted Asian daughter. And to teach their Asian daughter about her culture, they buy an Asian android, right? Who gives her like Asian fact of the day kind of stuff, right? So it's this commentary also on what it means to be of a certain culture, but not of that culture, right? There's a line in this movie that absolutely devastates me. There's a character who, Yang is the android, who falls in love with this girl, and you find out she's a clone. So there's that whole angle too, is like this, what makes humanity, right? And she asks Yang, she's like, do you ever worry or feel that you're not human enough? Or do you question your humanity? And he said, no, but I find myself often questioning what it means to be Asian. It's like, holy hell. Like that just like, it's like his identity as an android, because he's supposed to be this ambassador of the culture for this little girl, and neither one of them have any real connection to it. So it's, there's just a lot going on, and it makes me emotional. I might have weeped at the end of this movie. It's also got, I think, the best opening scene of any movie I saw this year. Right, Chuck?
It's fucking fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, you watched this, Chuck. What did you think?
I'm almost afraid to talk about it, and here's why. And it might have missed my list because I'm afraid to talk about it. There is a notion of acceptance, like thread, all throughout this movie, right? Like the acceptance of clones and the neighbors disliking the clone kid, or Colin Farrell, disliking the clone kids. And there's a lot that hits home with me that I cannot talk about.
Sure.
That this movie really resonated with me.
Yeah.
But it's also, it almost hurt too much to make it like a favorite of the year. But I think it's a wonderfully made movie. It is heartfelt.
Yeah.
It does examine things, like you said, in a very quiet way. Like the whole scene with Yang and Colin Farrell talking about tea.
Oh.
That almost made, I mean, not almost, it made me cry.
I mean, I'm tearing up right now. I'm not.
Yeah, it's an astounding film, and I would say anyone should probably watch it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good stuff.
And Haley Lou Richardson, I just want to say, might be my favorite working actress today. She was the lead in Columbus. She's in this movie as well. She was recently in the new the new season of White Lotus. I love her.
Oh yeah, she's great. She's great.
Love her so much.
Does this actually take place in the future of Columbus, Indiana?
I mean, it could. Yeah, very, very easily.
It's interesting.
The architecture is already weird in Columbus. Yeah.
I really do like how they handle the future in a not historic, but whatever. Like everything's come around to an older style, right? Like pre-internet style or pre-technology style, but technology is still just kind of there. Like people watch movies in glasses, and stuff like it. Like enough of what we know is there, but it's also like feudal, almost in a way, is the way I would describe it. Yeah.
It's kind of interesting. I haven't watched this, but just hearing what you're saying about it, this is kind of our future coming. There's going to be, things don't end after we figure out the questions that we have today about society.
No, absolutely not.
Come along. It's going to be clones, or it's going to be AI, or it's going to be,
I mean, this is what happens before Firefly, really.
Yeah.
I love the one sentence reviews for movies in Letterboxd. It's like one of my favorite things. And my favorite one for this movie, and this will only make sense if you've seen it, but it's so funny. It's the future is robots programmed to introduce children to Mitski.
I do love that.
That's funny. All right. That's After Yang. Go see it. Really go see it. I mean, it's just a nice movie, and it's a movie you can sit and watch with your family. And I think everyone will get something out of it.
Agree.
All right. Well, we're going to go from a quiet, subdued movie to the loudest fucking movie of the year. My number 4 movie is motherfucking Top Gun Maverick. Taking it to the danger zone, bitches. Fucking drinking beer and, I don't know, probably playing some football on the beach. Anyway, Top Gun Maverick. Again, much like The Fablemans, this is why I go to the movies. Again, it was another one where it was like, you know, I'm going to see it in the Dolby, so like your seats are rattling in this type of movie. I don't think that this is just some sort of, you know, cynical cash in on a known property. There is a lot of heart in this movie, and I was bowled over by Tom Cruise actually acting like an adult. It would have been very easy for him, especially after that first scene, for him to play that cocky maverick character over and over and over again. But even in the opening scene, he seems a little older. He seems a little more wise. He seems more after actually trying to do something important, which kind of tips the hat a little bit to something that really hits home in two different ways in my experience of seeing this movie. One, of course, is the scene with Val Kilmer, where these guys are dealing with practically almost 40 years of their relationship and how it's grown and how it's going to end. But when I saw the movie, it was one of those experiences where you go to the AMC, you sit down, you go to the big presentation version of it, which is the Dolby. That costs more than the IMAX for some of these movies like this. And Tom Cruise comes on screen and welcomes you. And it's like, we really did a lot for this, and we hope you enjoy the hard work. And you don't normally see Tom Cruise sans filter. Dude's looking old. And you start to realize that this is a movie about getting older and trying to finally achieve the promise that he was supposed to have. And I think this movie nails that left, right, up and down and center. Because yes, there is this kind of push and pull with these young kids, and freaking guy from Scream Queens,
Chad Radwell.
Chad Radwell is perfectly cast in this. But the fact that Chuck is dying on me.
I have to say, I love Chad Radwell so much. I was in Dickie's. I can't even remember what the whole thing is called, but go ahead. Chad Radwell. He's good in this too.
Yeah,
very good
is.
In this.
And you know, of course, this is a legacy type of movie. So of course, there's going to be an Iceman and Maverick, Miles Teller and Chad Radwell push and pull in this. But there's also the relationship between the Miles Teller and Tom Cruise character that Tom Cruise, his character is literally going to sacrifice himself for this kid. And the kid doesn't just let his anger take, they have to work together. They have to understand each other. It's a different type of movie than the original Top Gun. And it is, there are some exhilarating shots in this movie. And just to think that these people were in those planes getting their faces filmed at while they're going to pass out. I would have passed out.
This is another movie I'm afraid to watch at home. Like, I saw this in the IMAX and it was just, it's fucking outstanding. It's probably the best or second best, according to me, technical movie of the year. I think the reason why it's not on my list is because another movie that was very technical I liked better. But man, I did dig this movie. I walked out of this movie exhilarated. It was way more fucking people cheered at the end of this movie than at Avatar. Like, it was crickets in a sold out IMAX theater for Avatar at the end of that movie. End of Top Gun, it was like a round of applause. Like, it's like the filmmakers aren't here, people, but they were here.
Right. Well, this is the type of movie also that this breaks kind of a mold that I don't really want to go into this too much, but this is a time where every single fucking piece of entertainment or media is getting one side excited and the other side hates it. Now, you can say whatever side that is, and it depends on what the movie is or what the piece of media is. They're charging at each other to talk about it being woke or talk about it being just great because it is so generally what's the word I'm looking for? Not accepting, but you know, it has all these different kind of perspectives and these different angles that it's coming from. This is one that broke through that, and just about everybody who saw it will like it at the very least, if not absolutely positively love it. And sometimes those are the things that kind of crack the surface a little bit to kind of maybe get people to shut the fuck up about some stuff.
I mean, this to me is the perfect popcorn movie.
Yeah.
And to me, it's the movie that brought people back to the theater after COVID.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it will be looked upon in a significant way in history because of that.
Yeah. Chuck,
I think two things. To piggyback on your earlier statement, this movie didn't try to use any political or any kind of stand. It did not try to polarize anybody.
It just went for what it had.
Which is Hollywood is kind of culpable in that too. Like, two movies I really like Knives Out and Glass Onion, to bring in another 2022 film was like, why do we gotta needle this shit? I know you're representing both sides, but let's not needle it, right?
Right.
And this movie was like, fucking have fun. Yeah. And this ended up right on the outside of my list. It's just fun. It's just good. It's a little stupid, but it's fun.
Well, but I mean, it is, but at the same time,
you don't have to defend its stupidity. They dropped two men into the middle of Russia and they stole a plane. Like, come on.
It's a lot stupid, but it's stupid like those 80s movies that we loved were stupid, you know?
Yes. But it's not, but it's
and more well done in a lot of ways.
Right. Yeah. But it's not waving at you at the camera saying, this was the 80s, you know, or it's doing all the same things. Again, this is the pastiche thing. We talk about that here in a few weeks, where we talk about a movie that is being developed into a TV show, and we're concerned about the direction it's going to go.
Right.
But this is the pastiche side of it, where it's like, this can be a sequel, and it can be a legacy movie, and it can be, it can kind of ape off of itself a little bit, but it's not going to draw attention to any of those things. It's just going to tell its story.
Yeah.
But it also, like, you talk about pastiche, which I get, but it also almost remakes some of its own scenes from the original and expands upon them.
Yeah. I mean, this is, to me, Maverick is a better movie than the first Top Gun.
I don't know if I agree with that, but I will say this. The last thing I'd like to say in this, the scene with Val Kilmer, because I had watched Val recently.
Yeah.
The scene with Val Kilmer and I'll just say Tom Cruise. It's not even Maverick in that scene. It's those two men almost having a moment.
Sure.
Is really just kind of nice.
Yeah,
right?
And it's mature too. That's the best part of that.
But I feel like it's just them. Yeah. I don't feel like they're acting.
No.
In that scene.
No, I agree. I mean, it's two guys who've known each other for 30 plus years. They're getting together, you know, having a scene, and there's a weight to it, but it also is nice. You know,
it's very nice. Yeah. It's very nice.
Yeah. There's a levity to it. I mean, Val Kilmer's cracking jokes in it, you know, but it's, but it's heavy too, and it really drives home a point that these characters have grown up and things have happened. But
I also think it's a better movie than the original because I think it has the emotional weight
yeah,
that the first movie doesn't have, and thematically it's a stronger film. It also benefits heavily from being Star Wars: New Hope.
I think you guys are forgetting when Goose died for the first time, though.
Oh, that
I
was
think
good. Yeah,
that was like heavy. It's heavier than anything that happens in this movie.
it is.
by
You're
a
right.
lot.
That is a super heavy moment, but it kind of that movie doesn't allow the character to take time with his growth, right?
No, he just gets on a motorcycle.
Yeah,
I get that.
It's
Yeah,
like-
I get
very
it's like-
80s.
it's like Footloose, angry dancing away, but he angry motorcycles away.
Yeah.
it's Leadfoot instead of Footloose. Sorry.
But that has to happen in the first movie for a lot of this movie
Absolutely.
to exist, because a lot of that,
Absolutely.
because this movie is entirely written around that and how it affected Tom Cruise, and he still feels the need for speed and he can't live without it, but he also is no longer reckless to those around him.
Yeah.
All right, Chuck.
Well
you want to do
said.
the one that we passed up that I had a goof on?
Yeah, sorry. This is a bit of a foible on my part and how I
Well,
listen
no,
to my movies, but
this also kind of puts a nice little bow on your horror thing.
it does. Another horror film in one that for the first half is more thriller in a lot of ways. Barbarian.
Yeah.
So Jason recommended this to me, and I think Geoff, you may have seen it in the theater too. And
I saw it just after Jason did. Yeah.
yeah, and the overriding note, and this is funny because you've mentioned this a lot, Jason, during this episode. Like, I would hesitate to not see, or I'm afraid to see this at home, right?
Yeah.
Barbarian, Top Gun, a couple other, those two in particular, Barbarian and Top Gun, are films I would like to have seen in the theater for sure,
Right.
but definitely translated at home.
Oh, for sure.
Barbarian,
Barbarian for sure does.
yeah, Barbarian and like the atmosphere, I'd love to have those, all that shit coming from the side of me while I'm focusing.
Yeah.
But it is masterful in its subversion of character, or not character, actor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you have two characters, one of which who's scary all the fucking time, and one of which you love all the time as an actor, being totally played against you, right?
Oh yeah.
And I don't want to go too far into the story here because I'm not sure how many people, I know people have seen Barbarian, but I don't want to ruin it because it's moments that make it great need to surprise you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's one of those movies, like I will watch it again, but it's one on my list, Geoff, where I think the experience will be lessened by a repeat viewing because I won't be as shocked. That's almost saying too much, right?
Well, yeah.
Like people are going to wait to be shocked.
I would almost argue that this is the type of movie where you start to see other things. Like maybe, because the first time you saw it, you were shocked and you had a reaction, you had a gut reaction.
Absolutely.
But maybe the second time may expand on other things to where you see, oh, now I can pull back layers now.
Yeah, I don't have to pay attention like in The Usual Suspects, which is one of my favorite movies ever. I know what the twist is. I can watch all the periphery, right?
Right. Yep.
Which is great. And this movie actually has some very comedic stuff in it, which is
Oh my
kind
God.
of wild for the
Measuring the Rooms got a huge laugh
it's
out of me.
really
God.
like this is a movie that uses new, like, I don't know, you're talking about like taking Fountain Square in Indianapolis and turning it into a paradise, right?
Right.
Or whatever.
Yeah.
And you find the stairwell that just goes forever and you're like, oh, I can charge for this shit. It's,
Right.
it's fucking wonderful. But the scares and the actual, what it's trying to say about gentrification just in general, is very powerful stuff. And it's done in a, like, it's one of those movies you almost feel bad for one of the bad guys, right? Like,
well, yeah, sure. Certainly for the quote unquote, I'll just say it, monster. For the monster of this movie.
The monster is the least of the monsters in a lot of ways.
Exactly. And the movie is also very good at making you watch it kind of like this, where you can't see the periphery, and it's done in an excellent way. At nighttime, you can't see what's around this perfect little house. And
right.
then the morning comes, and you're like, fuck, why would you stay here? Why would you be here? You know,
right.
in a normal situation? Because it looks like a fucking war zone, but you didn't see that because everything is focused on the weird stuff happening right in front of your face, or the weird character that is in this house that is the whole trailer, but then is not what you think it is.
It's funny, and I'll kick this to you in a moment, Jason. I went to an area of Indianapolis last night where it feels like it's almost like Sim City. They just dropped in a nice area. Yeah. Right? Without worrying about everything else that's around it, and worrying about, and I'm not being judgmental of the people who live there or the homes that they have, but it's like, okay, now all of a sudden all the roads are brick and everything around it is like destroyed. That's kind of what this movie was saying. But go,
well,
Jason.
And unfortunately, and just really quick before
sorry,
real quick, but something like that though.
No, can't get a word in edgewise on this one.
But something like that though also portends a very dark thing. That one nice little thing is going to push all of those other people out. Just dropping that one little nice part is going to kill everything else around it, and those people are going to be busted on their ass. You know,
it's well done in that portrayal.
I'm talking about what you were talking about. Like
yes, but it's in this movie too.
It's absolutely
with the Airbnb being like.
Yep. All right, Jason. Sorry.
Okay, I was gonna say that now that we've said a lot of things about it, this is probably the movie of 2022 that the less you know, the better.
Yes.
Well, no, yeah.
It's also the movie of 2022 that you want to watch with someone who hasn't seen it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what those movies are like, right? And you just keep looking over.
Yes.
Keep looking to see how they're reacting. How are they hanging in? Like, because I saw this in the theater by myself, and I will say, I've not felt the way I've felt watching a horror movie in a theater since probably the first Scream, specifically that first act of this movie. And then watching it at home with Susan and getting to see her reactions to things while also kind of getting, like, kind of seeing the periphery, right? Like Geoff said, while knowing what's going to happen is very enriching. It was kind of amazing how much I liked this movie. And again, this was on my short list, didn't quite make it, but I liked it a whole lot. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, so let's talk about some bad stuff before we get to our last three.
Okay.
As we, I know, Chuck, you and I are going to give our top threes. Jason is kind of doing prime numbers. One, 3, and 5. And he's going to get to say a little bit about his number 2 as well. His number 2.
It's 10200.
It's 10200. Yeah. So yes, Jason.
Okay, I'll do my worst first.
Okay.
God, I really struggle with this one because you can go a lot of different ways, right? And you could go with like the worst made movie, or the worst made movie that looks better than it should but is still crap, or just the movie that you had the most negative reaction to, which is kind of what I picked this year. I was real close to picking the Wreck one. I fucking hate that movie. Like, it is like, if you want to do everything wrong in a shark movie, then you make the rec one. It's shit. But my pick for the worst movie of the year is Smile. This movie is just absolutely. I mean, look, this is actually a well-made movie. It's incredibly derivative of a lot of different horror plots, but that's not why I don't like it. It is just so punishingly cruel to its main character. And it's like turning trauma into enjoyment. Like, there were a lot of movies this year that dealt with trauma specifically to women. But this was the one that really just made me feel gross watching it, because it almost like makes you feel complicit in their pain and their anguish. And I just really just felt bad about the whole affair. And to turn like suicide into a horror gimmick just really pissed me off. So yeah, Smile, fuck you. You're the worst movie of 2022.
Wow, there you go.
Geoff, can I go? Because I'm going to echo some sentiments here, and I'll go beyond that bullshit, because this movie did piss me off. Maybe not to the same extent it pissed you off, Jason, but I'm in the same boat. But like you mentioned again, we'd seen a lot of women trauma.
Yeah.
And one of the things that annoyed me most, and maybe why Resurrection, which I really liked, didn't make my list, is that there were so many movies this year where women weren't able to articulate the danger they were in, or articulate their understanding of their own danger.
Right.
Like Smile in particular, this woman had files upon files upon files of proof of this. We'll bring up It Follows.
And she's
just
a
to make
fucking
it
doctor, you know?
Yes.
I mean, Jesus Christ.
And I get being traumatized and not being able to articulate or not being able to gather your thoughts. But she took rides to her sister's house where she could gather all of her thoughts and then be like, hey, look, listen, here's this thing. She could do it.
Yeah.
And it's a very like contrived way to push horror that I just don't care for. So
they made her like the hysterical woman.
Yeah.
You know, that trope. It pissed me off so much.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I'm with you. I did not enjoy that. You
know what's interesting? The nobody believes the woman trope worked fucking perfectly in Barbarian. Like, absolutely to a T. Like, that was the perfect execution of that trope. Because
you know why?
Because it was the piece of shit cops, right?
Yes.
And because, they were like, oh, we've better things to do than listen to who we perceive as a raving crackhead.
Right, because it didn't rely on her inability. It relied on the other people's unwillingness to listen.
Yeah.
And that is very important.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right.
Geoff,
I'm glad I purged that.
So you both picked Smile.
That's been like really just like,
okay.
I can never talk about that movie ever again. It's great.
Okay, well, you got it all out. So there you go. So when you go see 76 movies,
damn, that's insane.
And I mean, some of them I watched at home, and some, there are some movies that you see, like The King's Daughter, which is like kicking a puppy when it's missing a leg. It's like it's well, no, but I mean, but the thing is, it's like it's a bad movie. But it was also a movie that was made 8 years ago, or something. And it just it just kind of farted out into the theaters, right? And it's like you kind of feel bad for it after a while. It's like, don't kick that puppy that's missing a leg. But then you get to see movies that are truly bad, like Moonfall, that are gloriously bad. And I think I saw those two movies back to back, as a matter of fact, which is amazing. I hated Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I started Blonde and I had to shut it off after like 45 minutes.
I did too, by the way.
Yeah. And so those are movies that are truly not good and truly not. Most of those are not my speed. Moonfall is absolutely my speed. And I loved every stupid minute of that movie. But then there were a couple of movies that I saw in the theater that were big time, big budget, highly advertised, put on the shirts, put onto, cross promotion, put on the toy aisles and everything. And they both talk about something that farts out into the theater. This is like a wet fart all over the screen. One of those movies was Lightyear, and Lightyear was so dead on arrival that it's like, why did they even try to make this movie? And what made that movie so bad, and this isn't even my worst pick here, but what makes
Are you kidding?
What makes that so bad is that it is a movie that tells you at the front, this is the movie that the little kid in Toy Story went and saw in 1995. Now I'm sitting here thinking, I'm watching a 1995 movie and I'm watching things play out and I'm like, this is nothing like that. So that kind of sucked, but that does not take the cake. No. In one of the biggest cases of cinematic blue balls that have ever existed comes Jurassic World Dominion.
Oh my God, Geoff.
Because the Jurassic franchise can eat my butt in general. You have one great movie, the first one. Then the sequel, it's like, oh my God, look, these dinosaurs got to San Diego.
That's a fun movie. The second one is fun, but it's not good.
But then it never delivers on the promise of now we have these dinosaurs in San Diego, right?
True.
What's the third
Right.
one do? Go back to the fucking island.
Yeah.
Then you have Jurassic World. Now I'm going to give Jurassic World a big old pass. I thought that was stupid ass fun, and I enjoyed it.
That's the first Chris Pratt, right?
Yes.
Yes.
I enjoyed that as well.
Okay.
Yes, I enjoyed it.
The second one is a big old pile of donkey shit.
I can't even remember it.
Well, no, there's only one thing you need to remember. Stupid clone girl who's annoying as fuck lets
God.
all of the dinosaurs out
It
to
dooms
kill.
all of humanity. Yeah.
Dooms all of humanity. So here comes the blue balls part.
Yeah.
Okay, so now Jurassic
That's the one where
World-
they auction them, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, it's such a stupid movie. Yeah.
It is. It is so stupid. In the end, I remember seeing that. Former guest on this show, Kelsey, we sat there and the movie ended and we were like our jaws were open. Like, she just killed everyone. She just fucking killed the world.
I mean, it's kind of metal, you know?
Yeah, well, but it was also stupid fucking annoying. And so then they take that one character and turn her up to like 13 in this new one.
That's Chastain, right? Or not Chastain.
No, it's the
Chris?
one. It's that
the
little girl
little
that they're
girl.
trying to protect.
The little girl. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bryce Dallas Howard is no character in this
Nope.
movie.
It is
She
Bryce
is-
Dallas Howard.
Right.
My
She
bad.
has zero character in this movie.
So you do the same thing. The Bryce Dallas Howard, Jessica Chastain, that
Oh, yeah.
age-old dilemma. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tears me up.
Chris Pratt.
Age-old dilemma. Go ahead, Geoff. Sorry.
Chris Pratt is a non-factor whatsoever in this fucking movie. I mean, if I ever see somebody hold out their hand at a dinosaur again, I am going to seriously take a shit on that person.
Like hand out to feed them or hand out to stop them?
The
yeah.
fucking
Okay.
blue,
Yes.
like,
Yes.
stop. Yeah.
Listen, I will literally drop my fucking pants and shit on them. I'm so sick of that. The old characters from the first movie, why are they here? They do nothing. They do nothing but to have all six of them in one shot for a fucking trailer.
The old characters were the best part of this movie, but they had
They were shit too, though.
They had the least interesting things to do.
They were utter shit. Jeff Goldblum is just trolling this movie all the way through. So I give him props for at least understanding that he's in shit.
So wait. If I can stop you, I know you have a point to make. But do you think Jeff Goldblum was literally in this movie like, I'm in a shit movie, I'm going to exploit
Yes.
it?
Yes.
Okay. Fair. I haven't watched it because I
think,
quit watching the other one, and I'm
enough.
like, no time for this shit. Go
He
ahead.
cashed that check, and he was like,
he's
okay.
hamming it up. He's
Good for him. Good for him, 100%.
But you know what? It
Absolutely.
works because it fits his stupid character.
Yeah, I know. Unfortunately, it does.
Yeah.
But but here we go. A movie that is supposed to deal with the ramifications. It's in the fucking title, Dominion. To deal with what happened at the end of the second one. And we have one scene where dinosaurs are running wild in Cyprus, is it? I think that's where they're at. I don't fucking know, and I don't fucking care. And I know I was in trouble when I look over at one point to the stranger sitting next to me, and he pulls out his phone and he's flipping through it while the dinosaurs are running across the street in fucking Cyprus.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, so now this brings me to my big point why this is the worst movie I saw last year. Because I saw that movie in a crowded theater, and that guy still sitting next to me, flipping through his phone, checking his watch to see what time it was halfway through the movie, liked it. He liked the movie.
How do you know?
Because he was like, there was something else that happened. I don't remember if he was there with somebody else or whatever, but he ended up reacting positively to the end of the movie, or at the end of the movie, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, I wish dinosaurs would come along and just end us now, because this is just going to keep happening. In 5 more years, there'll be Jurassic Galaxy or something. There'll be fucking stupid dinosaurs on the moon or something.
Yes, dinosaurs in space.
They're going to fuck it up because
Why haven't they done that yet?
Because here's what's going to happen. They will never get to the fucking moon. They'll still be on that fucking island, and they'll never actually show fucking dinosaurs running wild on the moon because they can't ever deliver on their promises. Cinematic blue balls. It's the worst movie of 2022.
It's
Okay.
bad. It's bad. There's one thing that was a stroke of genius though, is that Jeff Goldblum's character is kind of like a corporate guru,
Oh yeah,
futurist, right?
right.
And that's fucking funny because that's exactly what that guy would be, like this futurist fraud that people like he's basically holding these self-important lectures,
Right.
Oh my God.
and the people on the campus of that's kind of like Google-esque tech company, you're just like eat up everything he says. It's pretty good, but yeah, the rest of the movie's shit.
I don't want to belabor this because I haven't seen it and I will not give it any of my time, but I am curious because there's a reason for this question. How old was this man who was looking at his phone and gave it a positive kind of thing? You don't have to know his exact age, but is he
I
in
would
our
say
time range or younger?
No, he was no more than 30, I would say.
Okay.
So these movies are going to be coming out for another 20 fucking years.
No, I'm just worried about the future of cinema in general because I see my children.
I'm sorry. He wasn't looking at his phone. He had an Apple Watch and he kept turning it and it would show him. So he was kept checking the fucking time multiple times.
He could have any reason for that, but yeah, okay.
Well,
Fucking
I
hell.
can.
This movie made $1 billion worldwide.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why there's going to be a Jurassic Shark. Never mind, I'm done.
It's a Jurassic Shark, is what it is.
Yeah. It's a big old Jurassic Shark. It
Jurassic
ruined my
Rubber
underwear.
Chucky. I can't wait for that one.
Is
Yeah.
it possible that Colin Trevorrow just sucks? Like, he made Safety Not Guaranteed, and he hasn't made anything.
Is that the Mark
sense.
Duplass movie?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a good one.
And he hasn't made really anything good since, other than giving Jurassic World a pass.
I think sometimes people shouldn't be given large scale movies and should be given more person to person movies, but you might be right.
But
Maybe
this
he
is a
just
script
sucks.
issue, too. I mean, the last two Jurassic World movies scripts just sucked.
Yeah.
And this one didn't know what it wanted to be.
Right.
Is it World War Z? Is it Mission Impossible? Is it what the fuck is it?
Yeah, and I don't know I don't really know what those giant locusts were all about.
Yeah.
I
who
do.
knows?
The Good Earth.
It was supposedly it was to like control something with the food population or whatever, like,
And it got out of control or something.
and it got out of control, and I don't know.
But then dinosaurs.
Dinosaurs, sure.
Yeah, but they don't connect those two dots. it's just infuriating.
Forget it.
Anyway,
Forget
it's
Done.
yeah.
Done.
I mean, imagine it, yeah. Anyway, fuck it.
it. Forget it.
Done.
Jason, talk about your fifth best movie of the year.
Does Chuck have a worst of the year? Or no.
No, didn't you say it was?
Oh, I wouldn't smile with you, buddy.
Oh,
Yeah.
you agreed. Okay, I gotcha.
Yeah,
Cool.
Yeah,
Fair enough. It deserves it.
I spent way too much time on that fucking draft.
You talked a lot on that. You had like 7 movies you wanted
I
to talk
took a
about.
bathroom break.
Yeah. Jason went 10-100 while you were
Yeah, I
talking.
All right, my number 5 is Athena. So this is a weird one. All right, so this was Costa Gravis, the guy who made the movie Z back in the day, kind of a political filmmaker. This was made by his son, and it's kind of a gimmick movie. It takes place in a fictional French neighborhood called Athena, and it's kind of playing a little bit on the tensions between the lower class, minorities, and police authority. Right. What's happened is this boy has been killed by cops, presumably. There's video of cops. They haven't been identified, but they've been. But it looks like it's cops that's killed this little boy, and this little boy is the brother of 2 other men. One who is kind of a leader in his neighborhood in Athena, this lower class neighborhood, and the other brother, the older brother, is a cop. So it creates
Is he a cop or is he a like a soldier?
He's pretty sure he's a cop.
Okay. Oh yeah. You're right. He was just in his dresses.
Right. He was in his police uniform.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
At the beginning, but it sets up this Shakespearean tale, right, of brother against brother, trying to do what's best to get justice for their dead younger brother, right? It's got some powerful scenes. The stuff between the 2 brothers. What I really love about this movie is how it sets everything up. The dynamic of this movie is all there in like the first 10 minutes. It's like, okay, this is the movie, and it's just this immovable object for the next 2 hours. The gimmick is that it's constructed in several one-shot takes. Now, the whole movie it's not set up to like look like Birdman, where it's all looks like one take, where they kind of hide cuts. They do have moments in between long takes where it's traditionally shot, camera A and B kind of stuff. They don't try to go too far with that. They still want to make sure they tell the story effectively. But those one-take shots are absolutely engrossing, particularly the very first shot. Like, if I said probably After Yang has the best opening of a movie all year, that's probably not quite right. The opening shot to Athena is one of the most spectacular things I've seen in my life. So spectacular that I was sure they faked it. That there was no way in hell that this was an actual one-take shot. I had to watch the behind the scenes to see how they did it. And I was like blown away by how they pulled this thing off. So then you watch it again, you're like, yeah, they're not faking any of this. And yes, it's like this technical marvel where the technical aspects of it might kind of overshadow the story itself at times. I kind of watch it in 2 ways. The first time I watched it, I was mostly engrossed by the story. Now when I watch it, I'm just watching it to see how the fuck they did it, right? But god damn it, this movie ends in the worst possible way. Like it is. I call it just a wet fart.
Wet fart. I was about to say.
Yeah. It is the most disappointing cop out ending I could have imagined. Like Like, just don't put, if you're watching this movie, when you think it's over, just stop. Because that last 30 seconds is going to ruin it. Like, this was a lot higher on my list. I would have finished a lot higher on my list if it weren't for that ending. It's unnecessary. It's kind of patronizing. It's diminishing of people who are legitimately struggling from police brutality. It undercuts the whole fucking movie. And but it's still number 5 on my list for the year.
Can I jump in here?
Yeah, go for it.
If you don't mind. Sorry, Jeff. I really, really like this movie. But I'm actually almost in the opposite camp of you because the first 15, 20, whatever it is, 22 minutes is astounding. It's amazing. It blew me away. The problem for me with this movie is that it kept that going on. I would have rather settled into the brothers' stories in a more calm, like, conversational way. And I really didn't understand when the middle brother killed the older brother and the younger brother. Like, it didn't slow down enough for me to really take in. And I really think, like, the shots where the shields are up and all that stuff is amazing. But it relied on that too much for me to put it in my top 10. Otherwise,
totally
loved it. And the end did, like, any consideration I had for it was blown by the end.
Yeah,
That's totally fair.
I mean, this one was among the 16 or 17 movies that were really deserving of a top spot. But the major hit that I had for it was, it's not a movie I could watch again, really. It's a little, it's technically a very good movie. The end sucked. But the heaviness of it, it's like, I don't think I'm going to watch this movie again. Thank you. But
that's why I think if they leaned into the brothers' stories just conversationally, not to speak for you, Jeff, but that's what I would need to, like, go back.
sure.
Like, a little.
Yeah.
To me, it's the energy and keeping that energy up that wins the day for my enjoyment. There are enough moments where, yes, there's those moments of respite, and those are the moments where they aren't in the wonders, right? Where when they have a few minutes to catch their breath. But the movie's basically in real time.
Is there a hero in this film? Because I want the younger brother to kind of, like, center me.
Sure.
Like, that's what I was hoping for the whole movie. And I don't mean to talk shit about one of your favorite movies, but he never centered me. I wanted him to, like, I wanted to see his heart. But he kept turning the phone off when his mom was calling. Like, I was getting annoyed.
I think it's just the fact that it's so in the moment, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's basically in real time. He's filled with rage.
Absolutely.
And there's just no way through that for him right now. Right?
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think if it were a more reflective film, then there'd be a room for that. But I don't think with the energy of this movie, like what it's trying to accomplish, the kinetic aspect to it, I just don't think there's any room for it.
There is something to be said for that. And sorry, Jeff, I know you probably want to say something because I do love the energy of the movie. I really do. I just wanted a little more heart. Sure. Just a little more for me to understand the characters, which I do get from their energy, but it's still, they're all just, it's a barreling the entire time. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead, Jeff.
No, it's all good.
No, I mean, I don't really have much of anything to add there. So,
all right. I'll shut up then.
I guess I will go from one movie that that Chuck could talk a little shit about on Jason's list to a movie that Jason could talk a little shit on my list. My third place movie of the year. This comes from very early in the year, and that's the movie Duel. Duel is a very off-kiltered movie, and it's so peculiar and so deadpan while being both relatively heavy, but also another kind of a black comedy of sorts. But basically, what this is it's the near future where there has come a way for people to be cloned if they have a terminal illness. So, like, for example, I find out I have cancer and I'm going to die in 6 months. I could be cloned, and my clone will take my place in life so that my family does not have to grieve for me. So this, you guys would still have me here doing the podcast. My family would still have me and all of that stuff. But so what happens is that Karen Gillan, who is in this very weird there's a very weird loveless relationship she's in with her husband or boyfriend. I guess it's boyfriend, I think. And she finds out that she has this very peculiar, very weird stomach disease and that she's going to die. So the doctor says, here, why don't you go see this cloning thing? You'll get cloned. She'll take your place. All of that's great. Now, the clone's going to live with her for a little while and learn everything there is about her. So what she does is she ends up becoming the better version of Karen Gillan. She wins over, the relationship with her boyfriend immediately gets better. She's much more attentive to her mother, who is a little nagging, but but she actually accepts the part of being nagged and being very loving to her mother and basically pushes the real Karen Gillan out. Well, there is one little caveat to this whole cloning thing. If you end up surviving your disease, your clone and you cannot exist in the world together. Constitutionally, one has to be killed. And so they have a duel. Now, this is where the name of the movie and the 1-star reviews on Google crack me up, because people see duel and they think it's duel, meaning that the whole movie is going to be about two Karen Gillans fighting each other. And that's not the point of the movie. The point of the movie is how to try to figure out which one should die and whether they accept their place or whether they can accept ultimately killing themselves. And it's just, but to get there is just this really weird sense of comedy that just tickled me in a way that no other comedy this year had. And it is kind of designed in a way to kind of distance the humanity from the whole plot and the whole idea of the whole story. And it just hit me. And if there's anything that could be the 2001 version of Sexy Beast for 2022, it's Duel for me.
Is it that funny? Like, I've not seen it. Like, Sexy Beast is clearly got that like satire.
Well, I'm not necessarily saying that the comedy in this is very awkward and it's very different. What I'm saying is that it's a movie that I appreciate on that level. It's the little
Fair.
movie
Okay, fair.
I only kind of vaguely knew about, went and saw it, loved it, and will defend it.
Was not trying to bring any disrepute or whatever to your selection. No. Yeah, no. I mean, when I say that it fits that mold that Sexy Beast had, 20 years ago, it's just that it's the little movie that's just, I loved it. I just positively loved it. Awesome.
So anyway, but yeah, so that's that. And there's this whole dynamic between Karen Gillan and Aaron Paul, who's training her to fight herself and to kill herself. That is just they're the two right actors for those roles.
There's an interesting. I don't even know if I should bring this up, but X-Men has like a gauntlet now where characters are given the opportunity to kill themselves or fight in, I forget what it's called right now because it's been a while, but to fight in this kind of duel, right? But with another, like they fight Magneto or Cyclops or something, and they die and they come back as their best version of their self or whatever. So I kind of really gravitate towards that idea because of the X-Men story, but I know it's not the same based on your description, but I want to see this movie based on what you said and what I know from that arc.
Yeah. All right.
I saw it. I want to keep it positive, but I didn't like it. I don't like Riley Stearns at all, the maker of this movie. His movie, The Art of Self-Defense, I really disliked. And this one, I couldn't get away from it. It's just...
Did it suffer your previous?
It definitely, like maybe in a vacuum, I would have liked this more, but I still didn't like it. And it's what's weird about it is how much of what he did in Art of Self-Defense is kind of recycled in this one. Like,
yeah,
it's all about like it's just like the whole Aaron Paul character could have been taken right out of The Art of Self-Defense. It was very weird. But no, I don't like his style at all. Riley Stearns, it was a great concept. So there's my positive.
I will say this, and Geoff, if you want to, I mean, there can't be a rebuttal on choice, right? Like, or whatever. But this is what I love about our show is that we all get to like what we like, right?
Everybody gets to like what they like.
Yes,
it's all good. Yeah.
But that's not a theme everywhere where I've watched or listened to podcasts. Like, we're not judgmental. We just
no.
Well, I mean, and this is this kind of played into that scenario where it's like I just gave it a shot, and I saw it in the theater, and I was just like I was locked in. And I was like, "This is weird. It's kind of itching. It's kind of scratching an itch that I have. That it just worked."
It was kind of funny though when I was watching it. I was about 15 minutes into it. I was like, "Holy fuck! Riley Stearns made this movie, didn't he?"
I remember you messaging that to us, which is hilarious. Which is a good thing for other people, right? Like, if they like his style, they're going to recognize it and enjoy it. I'm next, right?
You are next. What's your number 3 for the year?
My number 3 is one I fought with myself over, right? It's The Batman.
This was right on the outside of my top 10.
Yeah, this is one that like floated all year, right? Like, I saw it early in the year. I can't remember the date because I'm bad at that. But it was up there. And I almost felt like I should fight it out. But I kept watching it. Like, I kept wanting to watch it. It's the only movie I saw this year 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
And that was enough of an argument for me. Like, even in it has problems, but it also has astounding performances, right? Like, is it Colin Firth? Oh,
Colin Farrell is
Colin Farrell.
Colin Farrell had a hell of a year, man.
It's wild.
Paul Dano had a hell of a year.
He did.
Well, I kind of wanted to talk about this because we need to make an app where you can put like 10 movies in and it tells you all the actors, like which movies they're in those. Like, Colin Farrell blew me away this year in almost everything he was in, right?
Yeah.
This movie has a caveat because you've probably seen The Batman. Everyone, I think, has seen The Batman, so I don't need to talk about it. But I will say this. a lot depends on the next movie for how this one ages, right? Like we have a young Bruce Wayne. We have a Bruce Wayne who's kind of annoying in a lot of ways, doesn't get stuff. A Batman who does learn, like he's given our Batman gets an arc, right?
Right.
He goes from vengeance to hope. But Bruce doesn't get that much of an arc. He doesn't grow a lot, and he's kind of annoying, but he's young. He's a young man. So when we get to the next, the Batman, whatever it's called, whatever's going on with that, I will reappraise this. I will say this. In my top 3, Barry Keoghan is either heavily in one movie or marginally in another. If Barry Keoghan gets the role of the Joker, I am 1,005,000% in. I don't know how that's like 6,000%.
There's 6,000 percentages. Yes.
Boy,
Yeah.
you can see like a little bit of where he might take it from his performance of Banshees, huh?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
1,000%. And
Yep.
I really think the Batman is adept. Like, if I can carry on just a little bit, it understands Bruce. It understands young Bruce. It understands young Batman. Like he has to be evil to combat evil, right? And he learns that the people he's trying to save will not flock to him otherwise. I may be doing a poor job of explaining this, but Matt Reeves, I feel, gets it as well, if not better, than Christopher Nolan. And the Nolan films are some of my favorite movies ever. So I'll just say I'm along for the ride. I'm slotting it at 3. It could move up based on the other movies. It is kind of contingent when you have a known trilogy, like things can fluctuate, right? At least for me.
You know, I liked Pattinson, and I like him in most stuff. I think people can't get past his stuff in Twilight, but
because
this is a guy who's made a lot of great movies with really, really like big time auteur or directors. I mean, I thought he was a fine Batman, but I really liked his Bruce Wayne because I think by casting someone like Pattinson, you can really lean into that theme of privilege.
Yeah,
what that means. That was what I liked the most about the Batman was it's the first Batman movie that really talked about the privilege of Bruce Wayne and that problem, right?
Yeah.
So,
I think Ra's al Ghul did it a little bit in the Nolan trilogy. I get you there, and that's interesting because, and I'm not challenging you
Ra's al
here.
Ghul kind of like broke him down, though, you know, because he's like training him, and he thought he was.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't him training him, but yeah, I'm with you. But I also think early on you were a little bit weary, even having seen it, of Pattinson as Bruce Wayne. So have you come around?
I don't know. I don't think I was ever not on board with Pattinson. I do kind of like the idea of Nicholas Hoult better, but for me, it was just what I didn't like about the movie was a lot of how it was shot. It felt a little too.
Was it claustrophobic or?
Very, very darkly lit. Very, like too darkly lit for me.
Well, I was going to say that's always going to be a struggle with trying to figure out Gotham City on a visual level.
Well, this is hilarious.
The first thing that people are going to do is say dark. Yeah,
this is hilarious because peek behind the curtain. Geoff is the darkness, like, guy, right? Like you rail against darkness in film a lot, and Jason does not. This is like a reversal because
I
think you even said like, yeah, but you also said you could see shit in here.
Other movies. That is true.
What the fuck is going on?
Yeah, I could see everything.
I liked a lot of elements of this movie. I liked the Batmobile a lot. I mean, I liked a lot of elements of it.
I'll tell you what, the sound design.
I didn't really like the whole like last act a ton.
It's so ultra important, and I won't belabor this. I get you. But that, like, turn from vengeance to hope is important, right?
No,
Like,
I
the
think
fact
it's
that...
not that. It's I don't know. Honestly, I haven't seen it since I saw it when it was in the theater, and haven't really had much desire to. So maybe I'll revisit it and have more complete thoughts at another time. But I honestly don't even remember
That's
the
fair.
movie well enough to even talk about it beyond what I've said. Yeah,
That's totally fair. It's... I mean, I'm a Batman whore, so take that as you will.
Oh,
I
it's
just love
perfectly
that.
fine. I mean, you both liked it a lot. I didn't like it as much, but
Well, you suck at life, so
what are you
let's
gonna
just...
what are you gonna do?
Who's next, Jeff?
That would be Jason.
Okay,
Number 3.
Number 3.
this was kind of gonna be a no-brainer probably from the start. He would have to really fuck this up for me to not have it on my top 10. But my number 3 spot is David Cronenberg's Crimes of the Future. Man, this is a hard movie to watch, no doubt. Like, it is heavy as fuck. It is ugly, but man, is it not just like brimming with ideas? Like, it might be its one fault is it has too many ideas, and a lot of those ideas aren't fully explored. But there is not a moment in this movie where something interesting isn't being explored in some way. The performances are top notch. I was kind of worried about the art direction and some of the design of the like technological aspects of the movie, because in the early trailers it looked kind of cheap, but they ended up looking great. Final product looked great. It's a movie about ecological disaster, about evolution, and the government suppression of bodily autonomy. It's a satire of performance art. It's a satire of body horror, which I think is one of the most interesting themes. And Chuck helped me kind of fully realize what I was trying to articulate on this. That body horror moniker is applied to so many movies today. And there's this whole kind of subculture in this world of performance art because no one can feel any pain. So there's this exploration of the body as performance art. And there's this one guy who grows genetic ears or has them sewn to his body. It's kind of hard to even tell. And all he is a person with a bunch of ears, and it's completely devoid of any meaning, right? And I think that's Cronenberg kind of making a commentary on the body horror moniker itself. Like, it's been kind of co-opted into this meaningless theme, right? Ooh, it's body horror. Okay, what does that mean anymore?
Right.
And it's Cronenberg
it's almost,
reclaiming his mantle, his throne, right?
Yeah, it's almost like I'm going to do body horror because I'm going to be edgy.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So anyway, I still haven't watched this again since I saw it in the theater because I've been wanting to wait for a time to show it to Susan. But I'm almost kind of the point where I can't wait anymore. Because every time I was like, let's watch Crimes of the Future, she's like, well. She's like,
when you
but
bring
I
it
can't
up,
stop talking about it to her. I keep telling her about it. She's like, that sounds so interesting. And it's like, I know, let's watch it.
yeah, but the problem is you keep bringing it up while you guys are eating raw squid.
True.
That's not going to work out.
Damn it, you're right. Yeah.
Anyway, here's the thing, Jason. Earlier you said that earlier offline you said that I actively dislike this movie. That's not true. It's a movie that's not for me. It was not a pleasant watch. It certainly wasn't a pleasant watch for the people in a row ahead of me that got up the moment that the Naked Dead kid was on the cutting table.
Yeah, that's a hard one.
but they didn't really seem like people that I don't know what they were expecting.
I always wonder,
Anyway,
like, what do those people think this movie is when they go?
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They expect gore without the artistic wrapping around it, which that's not to say that it's wrong of them to have tried it. That's me saying that there are parts of this movie that is different and interesting, and the stuff that you mentioned, that the stuff that it's about on the outside is the stuff that I like to think about. This is one of those movies that I have a very complicated relationship with.
Sure.
Because it's like, I get it, I understand it, and I'm on board for the message.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't want to see it.
Yeah.
I also saw it when I was like with the worst bout of food poisoning I've ever had in my life.
Oh no. That's not good.
So you had body horror while you were watching it?
Well, I had body horror the few days before seeing it, and then I thought, am I feeling well enough to go see this? Sure, let's see what happens next. And I just I watched most of the movie through my hands because but it took me back to a place when my mom used to watch the surgery shows on whatever channel that used to be on, and I hated that because those fucking shows were always on at dinner time.
Oh,
and it's like, why the fuck are you doing this? And it's like, I just no, and it just
quite honestly,
the concepts are great, but the movie itself is not one that I can put my eyeballs on.
For sure, I get that, like 100%. Do I understand that? Yep.
Well, no.
Oh, you have some things to say, Chuck?
I mean, this is in my top 10.
List.
Oh shit, you're right. I forgot you did put this in your top 10.
I've grown to love this more since I watched it, and I loved it when I watched it. In a weird way, it feels like Darkman.
Oh, that's funny.
It's almost like a superhero movie in a
way,
weird vein. And the idea of body autonomy, which is extremely important and well positioned when this movie came out, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's not lost on me. But yeah, I mean, you mentioned it, Jason, and we talked about it. So your mention of it is, I think, a byproduct of us talking about it is like, Cronenberg is commenting on his own creation in a way. It's like kind of Frankenstein-y, right?
Yeah.
Like, he's made this monster. This monster is running. Well, what is this monster? Is it just the monster with ears that probably, in my estimation, are just sewn on, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's not a growth of the body. It's just show. Right? Like, this movie examines so many things, and there is that, like, really, I couldn't get past that superhero almost element. Like, and I know that Viggo Mortensen, from what I've heard, was injured during the filming of this, but he's always kneeling. Like, he's always in the corners. He's always in the shadows. He's always like, it's almost superhero-like, but that's not even my favorite part. Like, Lea Seydoux and oh my god, Geoff,
Kristen
help me. I know Kristen Stewart.
Kristen Stewart, Thomas. Yeah, she was in a movie with Kristen Thomas.
She is the perfect. She's not a foil, right? Like, I don't even know what to call her, but she's the perfect, like, draw me in character, right? Like, she's exactly what I'm thinking. Like, if I showed up at a room,
she's the gallery. Yeah,
she is the gallery. If I showed up and I had to, like, introduce this new growth I had, like, Jesus Christ, that's fucking weird, but it's made palatable by Kristen Stewart's, like, understanding and discomfort with all of it.
Oh, but then I don't know if I'd call that discomfort. I'd call that it's tickling nether regions.
Yeah. No, she has a discomfort that becomes that. In my opinion, I'm with you. I'm with you because she does become enamored. And I think that's like the audience again with body horror.
Yeah.
Like it's
Yeah.
always like a commentary on our relationship with Cronenberg's work.
Yeah, the
And I'm not
sexuality aspects, and like so much of his work is sexual, but
Yeah.
in really uncomfortable ways. Yeah.
Right.
And it's
Yeah.
weird because I'm not you, Jason. Like you are a Cronenberg fanatic, right? And
Sure.
Geoff, you are well versed in his work.
Well enough, yeah.
And I think he does a really good job of just drawing you into his understanding of how he's impacted this space,
Yeah.
right? And the story is good anyway.
Yeah.
Like I look at it like a superhero film. Maybe I'm weird, but
I think that's really interesting, and I'm gonna watch it with that mindset. I think it's got also one of the great. I can't remember if it was the final moment, but it might have been when he finally realizes why his breakfast chair isn't working for him. That's just great.
oh yeah, I mean, if we
Like
could
just from a narrative standpoint, like his arc into that is really good.
I mean, his arc is perfection in that
Yeah.
sense because he's not understanding the progression of human life and how we are growing, and he's fighting it
Well,
because
he's fighting it. Yeah.
he's cutting
working
out every
against it,
part
like,
of
in
him.
every way. Yep.
Yeah, he's cutting out every part of him that will make him happy.
Yep.
And that is a whole nother aspect of the story we haven't even talked about. The
Yeah.
fact that there are murderers out there trying to kill to keep this progression of human evolution under wraps. Like,
Yeah.
it's fucking wild. I get you, Geoff, too, but I challenge you to watch it after minute 11 and think of it as a superhero movie.
And don't have food poisoning, and don't.
well-
Yeah, don't have food poisoning.
I mean, I've seen the movie. I don't need to see it again.
Does much past that? I mean, because that really
it's the
opening is
digging
really
a-
fucking tough.
No,
I
no,
agree
no, no,
with
no.
that.
That is not at all my problem. It's the digging around inside the body. It's, I mean, I'm the guy who passes out with blood,
Yeah.
giving blood in a tiny vial.
Yeah, well, okay, but and I don't want to belabor this, but you've liked other Cronenberg films that do the same things, right? Or are you?
No, not like that. There's not
Not
another
quite like-
Cronenberg movie like this.
I mean,
Not for me,
Okay.
at least.
Fair.
like the closest I can imagine would be maybe like Videodrome, but that's so alien, right? Like the
That's
videotape and the
enveloping
stomach and
things.
stuff.
It's-
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's
it's-
almost Lovecraftian, right?
Right,
It's a little
right.
bit different. Yeah.
Yeah,
I just
it's
want to make
it's
sure
not-
you know there's no judgment.
No,
on my
no,
part.
no,
I
no,
was
no,
curious.
no. It's just it's not. It's I physically like I physically couldn't.
You
watch the
revolt
movie.
against it.
Right?
Yes,
Exactly.
I get
All
it.
good.
I get
All
it.
good.
I get it.
Where
all
are
right. So I am going to talk about number 2 on my list.
we? Number 2.
Number 10-200.
It's Weird, the Al Yankovic story, the funniest movie I saw all year. This is
Wait, did you skip one, or are you just going to go back to it?
No, I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, we're online.
All right.
Yeah, so Weird, the Al Yankovic story. This is it's the type of movie, and I say this a lot, but this is a perfect example of a type of movie, a type of parody movie that hasn't been made for 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
This is not a movie like so many parody movies in the last 20 years where they're just taking gobs of spaghetti and throwing it at the wall and seeing what sticks and what actually makes people laugh.
Yeah.
This is specifically pointed at, we've seen multiple movies come out now. Bohemian Rhapsody,
Yeah.
Rocket Man. I mean, hell, you can even say this movie was being made when Elvis came out, and they were still nailing the exact same beats perfectly.
Yeah.
And, making it. Now, granted, A 20-year-old may watch this movie and think, "What the? This is not funny. I don't get any of this." But people who grew up with Weird Al, who have seen Weird Al in their life for all of these years, are going to look at this movie and say, "Yeah, we got it. We get that this is, it's part. It's partly about the music industry. It's partly about how, the parody of how people become stars and how they act once they become stars. It's just, it's perfect. It's the perfect parody. It is the funniest movie I saw all year. I was grinning like a goon from start to finish for the whole movie.
It is the funniest movie I saw all year and probably in several years.
Yeah, and that's one thing I want to say also is that this has been a really good year for comedies. Comedies is the one genre that I typically do not want to see new movies of. A lot of comedy that is not scripted or just kind of rambles on and on and on, where there's no, it's like it's all improv, is not funny to me at all.
Yeah, I agree.
So this year, having so many good comedies come along that have a tight script and a tight point to it,
yeah,
this is great. I
also
hope more of this.
I hope also like scenes that allow the joke to develop.
Yes,
right. So it's not like a joke a minute. It's maybe you're going to take a little while to get to the joke.
But in between getting but this is layered like UHF is, right?
Right.
Because like there's the whole scene where there's this whole joke about writing my Bologna, right? And it's things happening around this scene that happen that he is writing the lyrics for. Right. However, at the same time, there's a developing joke about why are these guys always around?
Yeah.
And then we find out later they could have helped him from the very beginning because they're all musicians.
Well, it's like what we talked about with My Cousin Vinny. There's no wasted moments.
Right.
In this movie. Everything is on a path. And when it hits its mark, it's gonna be great. Yeah.
Right.
You haven't seen this yet, have you, Chuck? It's gonna hit you right. I mean, we know what you like, and it's funny. This is number 6 on my list, by the way, just so everyone knows. Although I think we're gonna do a recap later. Yeah, I can't agree more, Geoff. Very well deserving. It's the best comedy in years.
Yeah.
This is my one regret of not getting to, because UHF is one of my childhood favorites ever. Honestly, the reason I haven't watched it is because I had problems with the unit that would allow me to watch it.
Oh.
So
the Roku?
Yeah.
Because it's only available on Roku's, right?
Yes.
Is that right?
So
it's on the Roku channel.
Can you get the Roku
none of my
channel
other units allowed me to download it, which was weird. Like all of my stuff is Amazon, and it was supposed to allow the download of it, and every time I searched it, I couldn't find it. And the Roku unit I have, courtesy of you, Geoff, thank you, was weird.
I do think the Roku exclusive thing, the Roku channel, has hurt this movie. But it's good. But just like UHF, it's like got cult classic written all over it.
Yeah,
I mean
UHF
is one
will
of the
be
best.
Discovering this movie for years. Yeah,
UHF is like second or third behind Top Secret and Airplane, or Naked Gun is in a world of its own for me, so I'll just say like Top Secret, UHF, and then whatever. I love that kind of stuff, so I'm really disappointed I didn't get to this, and I should have tried harder. It's on me, but yeah.
You have the rest of your life ahead of you. Go watch it, sir.
Yeah.
I'll reappraise. It'll be one very soon. I'm sure.
All right, Chuck, what's your number two?
Oh, well,
Who does number two work for?
who does number two work for? I mean, that's your number one, right? Oh, Geoff walked away.
It did. How are we handling this?
I'm pretty sure. Let me.
Hold on a second. Your number two is Banshees of Inisherin.
Yes, thank you. Banshees
Let's
of
talk
Inisherin.
about Banshees of Inisherin. I always fuck up that Inisherin.
Did you look that up, and that's how you pronounce it? Because I've never looked it up. I assume it's Inisherin.
It is probably Inisherin. They say it a bunch of times in the movie, but I always screw it up. Inisherin sounds right. Banshees. That's why I just call it Banshees.
I'm good with that. Banshees is lightning in a fucking bottle.
Yep.
To me, it is clearly got direction. It's clearly got a point. It's clearly got all that stuff. But the lightning is the cast.
Yep.
Like Barry Keoghan. My God, I will be talking about his role in this, as small as it is, for the rest of my life. It blew me away. Colin Farrell, phenomenal as the straight man, and then Brandon Gleeson. Well, I mean, there's kind of a few straight men in this, right? Like, Brandon Gleeson throws his fingers at doors, but he's not, like, outside of his core tenants, is not a like outlandish dude,
right?
Right.
I think it's like, as a comedy, you're tempted to put people into roles, but I don't really think that anyone works. There's not a comedy that works that way.
It doesn't apply. I agree.
It doesn't apply. It's
I 1000 agree.
It's cast and written like a drama, but with highly absurd comedic elements, right?
And it's absurd because it's a fable, right?
Right.
Or I guess a fable's the best way to explain it. Like
an Irish folktale, if you will. Yep.
Yeah, folktale is probably the word I was looking for, right?
But fables generally have a moralistic point, so fable works probably better.
Yeah, fair. So we have the Irish Civil War as a backdrop, which is really kind of, if you look into it, what makes this movie great, right?
Yeah.
If you don't know about the Irish Civil War, you can watch this movie and be like, it was fantastic. It was great. It's about two men who have a falling out over no reason. I have had many people in my life, as unfortunate as it is to say, that have just stopped serving purpose, right? Like,
Right.
Do you guys have friends that just stop serving purpose?
Sure.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean,
There's those people you just stopped talking to, right?
yeah.
And they kind of stopped talking to you too, and you just don't really need them necessarily in your daily life. You might be polite. You're not like, you don't like actively avoid them necessarily, but at least I don't know if I have anyone that I actively...
Brandon Gleeson is polite in this, in his avoidance of...
The problem is we live in the big wide world of the United States. They live on an island and with very few people.
Right. And how many years ago was this? Like, my children could tell me
1920s?
exactly. Yeah, almost 100 years, right?
And they're drinking buddies, and it just kind of happens overnight. Like, Colin Farrell's character has a right to be absolutely perplexed and annoyed by Brendan Gleeson's reaction.
But he doesn't have a right to pursue it the way he does.
No, but he can't
Which is what
get
makes this
past
movie
it.
great. That's what makes this movie great, is that... So, Colin Farrell is, for lack of a better term, a bit dim, right? Like, he needs black and white. He doesn't understand nuance.
Yeah.
And the backdrop of this film is not black and white. There's nuance to the Civil War in Ireland. But there's constant like mention, like even when Brandon Gleeson cuts off his first finger and the the priest, I think he's a priest. This is where I'll fail when we get to religion. When he's doing his confessional, is like, yeah, we don't do self-mutilization.
Yeah.
Well, that's the whole movie, right? Like the
Right.
whole movie is the idea of we are all Irishmen, right? Or Scottish? No, Irish.
Yeah. Irish.
And we're killing ourselves. Like this whole battle is self-mutilization, right? With no reason. That is like, I don't know. I don't even know.
Well, his reaction by cutting off the fingers, so he's self-mutilating himself, but he's also cutting away things that used to be important to him. And in fact, he is stunting himself. The one thing he wants to do is to write the music. He feels that Colin Farrell is preventing him from writing the next great song. So what's he do? He cuts his fingers off to tell him he's for real. What's that do? Prevents him from fucking playing music.
Right.
So this is a dog eating its own tail.
Yeah.
Because that's what, when you're in a self-war, right? Like when you're at war with your own country or your own people, this is what you're doing. You're killing.
It's senseless escalation, and you can't see beyond the conflict. Yep.
The forest for the trees, or however.
Well, it's taking the macro, the idea of the Civil War, and putting it on the micro between two people, two individuals. And then there's people on the fringes. You have Kerry Condon saying, "This is stupid. Just let it be. Just move on with your life." You've got you got Barry Keoghan, who is basically egging him on almost. Yeah. It's like, well, he's being an asshole or whatever.
Yeah, but he can't take his extremes either. Like Barry Keoghan, like it's really interesting because Kerry Condon, who's telling him to just take it, right? Like, let this go. She's also willing to move into the city.
Yeah.
Right? She's willing to move into the middle of the conflict.
Yeah.
Right.
Whereas none of these other folks are. And you have Barry Keoghan, who is, oh my God. I'll tell you what, my favorite line of the entire year is "There Goes That Dream."
Yeah.
My heart broke.
Yeah.
In that moment. And Barry Keoghan delivers it so beautifully.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's the age old trying to play it off like it's not a thing, but also but it's for real. You know it, you can see it.
Yeah, I didn't even feel it as a play, but I mean, I know what you're saying.
Well, I mean, it's just
crushing.
It's a very realistic thing. Yeah, this one was this is the one movie in my top 10 list that I'm not sure I could just go right back to.
I could watch this.
I kind of want to watch it again right now. I'm like,
well, yeah, but I mean, there is a very heavy sadness that I felt in this movie.
It's melancholic, yeah.
And it's something that just yes, there's comedy in it, but in the end, it hurts.
You know what? I agree with you.
And I don't want to go right back to the hurt yet.
I think the heartbreaking nature of this film is so off screen,
right?
That you can kind of like put it off if you want to,
right?
If you want to,
yeah. And I think the thing is just that it left me feeling, as funny as it is through most of it, it did leave me feeling very melancholic. But
it's 1000% like, but that's what I love about it, and why I put it at 3, I think, or 2. Two. Yeah, is that it runs the gamut for me, and I can see it from multiple angles. That like I don't watch a lot of movies where I'm like, okay, I can turn off the fucking spouts right now and just laugh at this movie. This isn't one, actually, really. It hits hard, but it's also everything in comedy in a lot of ways. Like that first hour of this movie is just plain funny.
Yeah.
And even when it hurts, it's funny.
Yeah.
Which is weird. You don't get a lot of that elsewhere, in my opinion.
Yeah. All right. We're now on number ones.
I think we are. Whew.
So Jason,
Man,
you
we're
are
there.
the only dissenting number one here.
Yeah. I'll do my number one, and then we can have a love fest for the last film. Chuck just, I literally did a spit take.
Yeah, you did.
on Zoom camera. Did you record the video or just the audio?
I'll be right
Well,
back. I'm
I
going to
got
clean
the
stuff
video.
while you're talking.
All right, my number one is Chan-wook Park's decision to leave. I was super disappointed to see this didn't get a Best Foreign Language Film nomination. This movie, I've seen it twice now. Saw it in the theater, saw it at home. Chan-wook Park has just a way with me. He's a very engrossing filmmaker. He deals with like really dark themes, but makes these kind of like sometimes lighthearted films about them. I mean, this is a man who made a Vengeance trilogy. You might know him from a little film called Old Boy. That's what he's kind of like mostly known for. He's made one of the best vampire movies I've ever seen. Not to be confused with the Australian film. It's named Thirst. But he made this movie Decision to Leave, and he made it based on police procedurals and soap operas. He's like, I'm going to mash these two things up and make a movie. And it turns out that it's the most romantic movie of the year. I've been describing it as In the Mood for Love, the Wong Kar-wai film, and Basic Instinct. If you take those two things and mash your action figures together, you get Decision to Leave. You've got this femme fatale character who you don't know if you can trust, right? And you've got this really romantic storyline between her and our police inspector. And it takes you through... The first act is almost like this very by-the-numbers police thriller. And then the second act totally turns it on its head and flips the script and takes you in this completely different direction. Susan, when I showed it to her, she thought at the end of the first act the movie was over. And that's kind of the power of this movie, is how it subverts itself and what it's kind of basing its premise on. It's kind of one of those ones you don't want to talk too much about it. You don't want to give away the ghost, because it's kind of like a twisty turny type flick. I do think it's a little choppy in the narrative. Some of how it moves from scene to scene, and the editing, I think, just is a little jarring. It can be disorienting. I think that's a little bit why Susan was confused at times. It also doesn't help that it's a movie in two different foreign languages, Korean and Chinese. So, and that's kind of a plot point too. So a little bit of that is lost in the translation, if you will. But man, it just really, I walked into the theaters kind of blown away by it. And it just felt like kind of one of those types of American movies that you just don't see anymore, right? And I think it would translate so well as a U.S. remake, with potentially like a Mexican Spanish speaking female lead. I think that could or even vice versa. But anyway, it's again not a perfect movie, but it's not even Chan-wook Park's best movie. But it's my favorite movie of 2022.
Well, again, it's something about it that
Yeah.
scratched the itch. Chuck,
Sure
I know
did.
you saw it too.
Yeah, Jeff, did you see it?
No.
Okay. I love this movie a lot. Like, it's hard to explain without giving away the story,
Yeah.
but I do think that lost in translation aspect makes it a better movie. So even if you did approach it from the the lens that you were talking about,
Sure,
Jason, a Mexican to American or whatever. That lack of understanding is important because the scenes where communication really is important doesn't rely on language at all. And that's what I love about it. Like, the most pivotal scene for everyone is what about's not said, right?
Right.
Or what's said but not directly. This movie really hit hard for me. I really liked it. I think I mentioned to you, Jason, that they subverted, maybe subversion isn't the right word, but when I thought it should end was an American procedural moment, right? Like, this is the movie I've seen 1,000 times. They've solved the murder. We're done. But no,
this had my favorite line of the year. When your love died, mine began.
Yes, and that's the moment, right? Yeah. Like, that's the moment where I was like, wait a minute. Yeah. We're not done with this story yet. It's really well done.
Shot. Yeah.
Even if you just like procedurals, honestly, this is a good movie.
Yeah.
If you like deeper than procedural, this is a great movie. The ending is astounding.
Yeah,
it's fantastic.
It's pure romance. It really is.
Yes.
I mean, it's like when you look up the real definition of romance in the dictionary, it's that, right? It's like the extreme. It's Romeo and Juliet kind of romance, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
1,000%. And that I'll just call it a burial it's heartbreaking.
It is. Whew. Yeah. All right. Let's move on to
Chuck. This is
the consensus here,
right? So this is Chuck. This is our number ones for both. I know this is number 2 on Jason's list. Everything, Everywhere, All at Once.
Movie of the year, really, right?
Really, it is. This is a movie. First of all, I don't know about you, Chuck, but this was maybe this is the most original movie that is not working from an original premise that I have seen in a long time.
1,000%.
Yeah, because here's a movie that's about multiverse, right? We have but it's a movie about the endless possibilities of the different paths that could or should be taken. Now, we know that as comic book people as being multiverse, right?
Right.
And that is something that is not new in the last couple of years of movies.
No, it's a focus of Marvel
right now. Yeah, basically everything from now until like 2026 is going to be focused on multiverse. And yet this movie still figured out a way to be original about dealing with a multiverse. It's family drama, it's personal drama, and it is a relationship specifically about one woman and multiple people in her life.
Yeah.
Most importantly is her and her daughter. And the wedge that can be driven, particularly between Asian women. And the fact that 2 guys wrote this is really kind of that much more interesting and special. Did you guys watch Turning Red? The Pixar movie?
I didn't see it yet, no.
So here's another situation where yet another element that is kind of interwoven with this is that's another movie about Asian women and their relationship with one another.
Yeah. Yeah.
Particularly familial and expectations that are heaped upon Asian girls and Chinese girls in particular. And not to put too fine of a point on it, this is a multi-generational problem that Chinese women have with these kind of expectations that they must act or be a certain way because, let's kind of face it, they're not as well thought of in Chinese culture.
Valued.
Valued, exactly. That's the perfect way of putting it. And this gets carried down more so from mother to daughter. And this movie is so emotional by the end of it that, God, you hope that these two women figure out a way to do better with their relationship with one another. And it is a very, very special movie. And it is a movie that is so hyped and so nails the hype that if you don't like this movie after it's been hyped to you, you're looking for a reason not to like it.
I don't even think, and I agree with you in certain ways, I don't even think you can hype this movie correctly.
Probably not.
You
but
can't even sell this movie the right way to anyone,
right.
Which is why you tell people, like, just watch it. Just watch it. Because even the nuance of the Chinese, or their historical aspects and all that stuff that comes into this movie, that almost, and I don't mean this in a negative way, it doesn't matter.
Right.
Like the interaction of people, like fucking, I can't even remember his name right now, but Short Round as the conduit almost to change, like, it's universal. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't. I mean, the name tells you, and I didn't even plan this, right? But everything, everywhere, all at once is just a way of saying, like, it doesn't matter who you are, where you are, when you are. All of this relationship matters, right? Like, right. That's the way I view it. It's an astounding look at how people interact with one another and how people put themselves in positions, because even the thought, right? Like, what is the weird thought I'm going to have that puts me in this situation, like,
right,
to where I'm landing on a butt plug in the middle of an office? Like, that is all, like, crucial.
Right.
And it's wild. It's wild to me how well done this, like, I can't even think about how you articulate that when you're writing a script. I cannot even understand the thought that goes into that. It's wild.
And it's, but it's also got all of these wildly different ideas. I mean, there's a section where everybody has to do things with their feet because they have hot dog fingers that can't grasp anything. And the fact that works. Now, it's a funny aside, and of course there's an even funnier scene or vision that you see later.
But there's also a more heartbreaking scene.
Exactly. And like, there's just, I mean, the daughter's character, while technically the bad guy of this movie, is somebody that you have a immense emotion for and you care about.
I almost see that differently. I don't see her as the bad guy.
Well, she's the technical antagonist, I should say. Not the bad guy.
In my view, she is I mean, they totally position it that way, so it's hard to argue. But Michelle Yeoh's character is the one that needs to change.
Right.
Not the bad guy.
Right, but she's the character that we're following, so she is
Yeah,
put
I
on
mean,
its head, so it's right,
story wise, yes. Sorry,
right. But no,
She well, I think they both need to change. I think that
that's true too.
they neither one of them can continue down the same path without destruction ensuing. And it's the big metaphor, right? And it's the destruction to their relationship. And they both need to change in order for them to really truly accept one another.
That is definitely a better articulation of what I was trying to say, because I don't see either of them as, and I know, Geoff, you weren't pigeonholing anyone, but I don't see a bad guy.
I think why she comes off as the literal antagonist is because, you know, she's the young one, the headstrong one, the one who's more willing to kind of just burn it all down, right? Because she doesn't have the wisdom to see another way, right? Her mother is stuck in her ways.
Yeah.
And is unable to articulate to her daughter a better way for them to have harmony in their relationship, right? So they're both kind of at an impasse. And it takes a multiverse to bring them together.
God,
that's exactly
good.
Right.
It's really good.
It's kind of like if only there were a couple of Spider-Men to come in and help, you know. But yeah, so it was number one when I saw it. There was no movie that could really knock it out of that. And it is a movie that is everything people say it is.
I hope it wins everything.
Well,
yeah, I agree.
That would be swell.
I agree with you, Geoff. This was, I mean, I alluded to it earlier, and it wasn't the only one I was talking about, but high bar, right? Like, we saw this early in the year. It's fucking amazing. I think I saw this in the theater. Yeah, I saw this in the theater, and I was just like blown away. And nothing, literally nothing, approached it for me all year.
Yeah.
Although Jason's number one was really good.
It just got me. And it could be more of like a recency bias. And I did see everything everywhere all at once a second time, and some of that third act I felt like could use a little tightening because I could feel the time a little bit more. That's probably that is what bumped it to number 2, but it's still number 2. And honestly, everything in my top 4 is essentially interchangeable based on my mood. So,
yeah. So you thought it drug on in your second watch?
I thought all the different kind of like multiverse things that were happening could have all been a little expedited, if you will.
I felt that in my first watch and my second watch, but I was just like, okay, well, the rest of this movie is insane, right? Like,
it's like you can only go back to hot dog finger so many times before the joke starts to get a little stale.
Yeah, I agree with that. But I also, I gave it reprieve in the last act because of how good how it was resolved was outstanding. I mean, yes.
The
car scene and all that. Like, yeah, it's really good.
I mean, and just what happened needed to happen happened. Everyone, you don't feel like there wasn't like this grand emotional moment, but there was enough, right? Enough to where they both broke through, and it's a start. And you can feel that.
I know we're going to talk or probably run through our top 10, but that, now that we've talked about all of these movies, is a theme for me, right? Like, every movie I love has had like I'm going to say denouement or whatever, or an end that just felt right to me. Like, it either hit me in my heart, it hit me in my feels, or it hit me in my laughs. Right? Like it just had a good landing, which is nice because I don't always get that from all the movies I watch.
Well, with that, let's recap.
Do a
here.
recap.
I'll go ahead.
Okay.
I'll go ahead and
Okay.
number 10 for me was Beavis and Butthead Do the Universe. Probably the second funniest movie that I saw this year. Just bringing them into 2022 shouldn't have worked that well, but
Very funny. Very
Funny.
Then number 9 was The Banshees of Inisherin. We've gone over that. Number 8 was The Menu. Number 7, My Cheat, X and Pearl. Number 6, The Fablemans. Number 5, Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. Number 4, Top Gun Maverick. Number 3, Duel. Number 2, Weird the Al Yankovic Story. And number 1, Everything Everywhere All at Once. Jason.
My number 10 was Something in the Dirt. Number 9, To Leslie. Number 8, After Yang. Number 7, also My Cheat, X and Pearl. Number 6, Weird, the Al Yankovic Story. Number 5, Athena. Number 4, Banshees of Inisherin. Don't really know.
The Banshees of Ed Sheeran.
Number 3, Crimes of the Future. Number 2, Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. And number 1, Decision to Leave.
Me, top 10. Nope.
Nope.
All
That's
right.
it.
Sorry. Had to do it. Number 9, which I do need to mention in short, Scream. I'm a horror for Scream, but best Scream movie since 2 at least. It was real good, and I cannot wait for 6. Number 8, Barbarian. Number 7, Crimes of the Future. Number 6, fucking phenomenal movie, Decision to Leave. Number 5 and 4, Pearl and X. Number 3, The Batman. Number 2, Banshees of Inisherin. And number 1 really, I think, separates itself for me, like, by quite a margin. Everything Everywhere All at Once.
And there you have it.
Yeah, good year.
There you have
It's been.
it really is. It really is a good year. I'm kind of quietly interested in next year because I mentioned this earlier and I'm belaboring this. I'm sorry, but nothing like blew anything out of the water. I'm so used to like one movie being like, this is the one. It didn't happen this year for me. Well, Everything Everywhere All at Once, and then everything else, I guess.
Right.
Yeah, no. I will say real quick that I have seen 2 movies already in 2023. Megan knows exactly what it is, so that's.
I can't wait to see that. Actually,
Yeah, it's a fun movie. Go check it out. I already have one movie that I have an extremely complicated relationship with, and that's Skinamarink. I get what it's trying to do, but at 100 minutes, that is about 10 times too long.
Drop the rinky dink and just do the Skinamarink.
Just do the skin. But anyway, I am going to be back to do a review in a few weeks for Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Speaking of multiverse, we are diving headlong right into that in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So look for that probably sometime around either Friday the 17th or Saturday the 18th. I'll get that out. But don't forget to follow Film Seizure, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all those places. That helps you be aware of our various shows as new episodes drop. You can also follow us to podcast providers like SoundCloud, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spotify, Audible, all those places. We also upload stuff to YouTube. So we did it. We can put 2022 to bed. We can kiss it on its forehead and then turn out the lights.
Bye-bye.
Onward and upward into 2023. So until I return with Ant-Man and the Wasp taking on the nefarious King the Conqueror, don't forget to save me the aisle seat.